Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. Today is July 12th. It's a little after 9. You're at the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors. If everybody could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for our invocation by Imam Ahmad from the Islamic Center of Modesto.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
O Lord, we ask you for the blessings for our city, county, and state and country, with guidance and humility, with tolerance and patience. O God, guide us to foster good working relationships where we can work together upon righteousness and piety, and help one another to the best of interest for our city and county. Help us to live in security and peace, and grant us success in our businesses and good health for our families. We pray to you, God, to fill our hearts with mercy, sympathy, and understanding one another. We thank you, God, for diversity. We thank you, God, for the strong community and connections that we have in our city. We ask you, God, to fulfill the need for those who are in poverty and to ease the suffering for those who are in pain. Make our intentions sincere and guide our speech and actions with your wisdom. Amen.
Thank you very much, Ahmad. Okay, we're going to get started here. Before we have a presentation, I just want to, usually we all try to be awake up here, but just in case Supervisor Chance Condit is not, he had a little baby recently. So we all know how those sleepless nights go. And
coffee helps there.
Okay, good. A lot of coffee, and it's Carmelo Chad, is that right?
Carmelo Chad Condit. Yes,
Very good.
6.12 pounds, 19 inches.
Good job.
Yeah.
Very good.
So,
Congratulations.
good Thank you.
Very good chance. Okay. All right, we're going to start off here this morning with a presentation. July is Parks Make Life Better Month, and Tara is going to start this off. Tara, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing very well. You'll see there's some hats there for you. All right. You guys look great.
It doesn't mess up my hair.
It doesn't. So, good morning, Chairman Withrow, Supervisors, CEO Hayes, Council Bowes. I'm Tara Chumley, your Interim Director of County Parks and Recreation. It's my privilege to share with you today July as Parks Make Life Better Month, celebrating our county parks and the staff that care for them. With me here today is Darlene Hawes, our Deputy Director, and Mandy Dumlau, our Recreation Supervisor, along with several of our staff behind me joining us here today. So I believe each of us have fond memories of experiences at local parks where we grew up. I grew up here in Modesto, where I learned how to water ski at Modesto Reservoir. Today I enjoy camping at Woodward Reservoir, where my dog enjoys swimming and chasing the ducks in the water. I imagine that many of you here today have similar stories to share, and on the screen are pictures of our staff and family making their memories. Our dedicated Parks and Recreation team continue to provide an environment for our community that enrich lives through outdoor experiences that inspire lifetimes, which I'm pleased to share with you today as our mission statement. Stanislaus County has 22 community and neighborhood parks. Our parks offer playgrounds, picnicking, barbecues, walking paths, basketball courts, and sports fields, just to name a few. We also have 4 cemeteries, 5 fishing access points along rivers and lakes, a swimming pool, but maybe not for long, an organized youth camp, and numerous acres of open space and riverbank to explore. Stanislaus County offers 5 regional parks: Laird Park, Modesto and Woodward Reservoirs, Frank Raines and LaGrange off-highway vehicle parks. Laird Regional Park is located on Grayson Road in Modesto and offers picnic shelters, baseball and soccer fields, and has access to the river. Modesto Reservoir is located on Reservoir Road in Waterford and has year-round access to swimming, boating, and fishing, both developed and undeveloped campsites, an archery range, and a radio airplane field. And Woodward Reservoir is located on 26 Mile Road in Oakdale and has almost 900 developed and undeveloped campsites, seasonal swimming, year-round boating and fishing, and waterfowl hunting. LaGrange Regional Park is located on Old LaGrange Road and offers motocross track, both novice and intermediate tracks, mud pits, a playground, and 15 water-only campsites. Frank Raines Regional Park is located on Del Porto Canyon Road in Patterson and offers over 1,800 acres of off-highway vehicle recreation and has 34 hookup campsites, a recreation hall, and hunting activities. And now Darlene will continue our presentation.
Good morning. The Stanislaus County Police Activities League, or PAL, provides programming for kids as an alternative to drugs, gangs, and other criminal activity. This is done by offering exciting sports and leisure activities, as well as educated programs. Programming is available in Fairview and Oregon Parks, Keys, and Grayson Community Centers, and was recently added at Park Lawn Park. PAL also partners with Stanislaus County to deliver community events such as the annual egg hunt and holiday boutique. A few of our exciting events include the annual 4th of July fireworks celebration held at Woodward Reservoir, a festival holiday boutique, and the annual egg hunt held at Modesto Reservoir. We also host large special events such as the Dirty Bird Campout at Modesto Reservoir and All Day I Dream at Woodward Reservoir. And now Mandy is going to finish our presentation.
Good morning. How do parks make life better? Parks enrich lives. They add value to our homes and our neighborhoods. Individually and as a community, we will always have this need. The concepts on the slide are the messages of the Parks Make Life Better branding campaign: play, nature, exercise, positive spaces, gathering places, and forever. These messages were identified from customer research and convey the most important values. Values that are important as parks and recreation services are essential to our lives because they make life better. The goal of the Parks Make Life Better branding campaign is to raise awareness of the benefits of parks and recreation throughout California and raise the status of parks and recreation as essential community service. By joining this movement, we also join many other cities and counties in California with the same vision backed behind the Parks Make Life Better brand promise, which is parks make lives and communities better now and in the future. Since 1985, Americans have celebrated Parks Month to promote the importance of parks and recreation offered to benefit health and wellness, conservation, and social equity. Thank you to the Board of Supervisors for recognizing July 2022 as Parks Make Life Better Month. This concludes our presentation.
Okay.
I didn't know we were doing it.
Sorry, I couldn't get that gate open. After 12 years, I could figure out how to do that. Okay, so we have our resolution here for Parks Makes Life Better Month for you guys. And so, you know, as a kid, the main thing we would do in the summer is, you know, school gets out, and what do? Well, we head down to the park, and every day, every morning, that's what you do. We'd go there, and usually we'd have a little shack there. This is for the, you know, our parks within the cities for the most part, and in the outlying areas of the county. And there'd be a shack there, there'd be a park, a recreation director, and that's what we would do all day long. You'd maybe go home, get some lunch for a short time, but it really does, for kids, it's what we need, it's what we have to have. And then, of course, all the lakes and the stuff up at Frank Raines Park, all those things together. It really does make life better. Unfortunately, when things get tough, you know, when the economy goes down and we end up in a spot, we end up, it seems like the first thing that goes are the parks, and it's probably, if you think about it, should be the last thing that goes, because that's really what people still have that they still can afford and go and enjoy, and the kids can enjoy. So congratulations first on your position. Okay, there you go. On your position, on taking this new position, Tara. And we look forward to great things coming out of the park, and we appreciate you guys all and all the work that you guys do. We know how important it is for our community. So thank you all very much for being here. So congratulations.
Keep coming over here. Right.
I think I got you all. You guys are going to smile huge and smile. One more.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I comment, Mr. Chair? Okay, before you guys leave, I just want to say something really quick. I think it's important to acknowledge, and that was great, what we did here today. We all understand the importance, and I know we've had a discussion at our board retreat about investing money into parks, more money into parks. How's that? We're already investing some. The regional parks, we have partners in there, the Modesto Irrigation District and Modesto Reservoir. It's been a long-term partnership, and at Woodward with South San Joaquin Irrigation District and Oakdale Irrigation District. We're also trying to partner with TID. I don't know if it'll go anywhere, but the Turlock Reservoir is currently closed. It's a state park, and we're trying to go through the machinations, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But we see so much value in local parks as well as regional parks. You guys do a fantastic job. I can't say enough about what it means, and the chairman is right about, you know, the last thing that should get cut. That's not the way it always ends up happening, but the last thing that should be cut are opportunities for recreation. I went and put in at the Basso Bridge. First time in my life I've been in a kayak a couple of weeks ago. So that's one of our access, river access is up towards LaGrange, and took it down to our ranch down in Hickman, and it was 12 miles. It was too far for an old guy that's overweight.
Did you tell them about the rescue they had to have?
Yeah, that's right. We have this new helicopter. It's got this great line that just pulls you right out. But it was the first time I've ever been, embarrassing as it is, that I've been on a kayak in the upper river. I've been there at Fox Grove in that area where we have fishing access. But it was a wonderful day. I went with my son, and next time I'm going to take a fishing pole. I won't go so far, but I think there's just tremendous opportunity. It's like the greatest asset that no one knows about is our whole river system, not just the Tuolumne, but the Stanislaus and the San Joaquin. So thank you very much. Appreciate all you do.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Vito. Okay, we're going to move on here to public comment. And I've got a bunch of speaker cards, and then even if you don't haven't turned one of these in, you can still speak at the end. This is a period for anyone to comment on anything that is not on the agenda, and we give you up to 5 minutes or more if you need it. So I'm going to start off here with Mr. Monterosso, Joseph Monterosso.
Good morning.
Mr. Monterosso, how are you? Good morning.
It's the same problem. That's why I'm here. I brought you a little package with some pictures in it this morning, a little show and tell. Those pictures are taken on the dirt strip in front of my house. So I know when you guys go home at night, you feel comfortable in your homes and you're secure. When you go out in your front yard, you don't worry about somebody coming to hurt you. That's not the case in my front yard every single day, and it's not right. If you want to take this to court, which is what the program that we're currently on, then let's just get it done. Answer the complaint we sent you, please. Let's just get it done. If you want the judge to decide this, let's go to court. I'm quite happy to do it. You don't need to do that. You don't need to waste taxpayers' money, my money, just to do what? Close an unsafe dirt road. Why don't you drive out there and look at it? You want to see for yourselves? If Mr. Bose wants to advise you to take it to court, you don't have to listen to him. He's just a lawyer. You can make the decisions on your own to get this road closed. I'm going to use my whole 5 minutes today. I've served you with 2 documents for information. You might tell council there that I'm still waiting now 8 weeks on information I sent to Mr. James. Oh, that's right, he quit. Is there somebody else that's going to pick that up? You can answer. It's not going to cause you to go straight to hell, so you can answer it.
Mr. Monroso, I have to get you to direct your questions just to me.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Then let me address that question to you. I have put in requests, Freedom of Information Act requests, and I don't get answers. The law requires 10 days. Can I just get the answers?
We can't answer it here in public because now it is involving litigation, so we can't.
The litigation has nothing to do with the Freedom of Information Act. You can't pull that one here. We're not talking about the legalities of the litigation. We're talking about other matters. Two Freedom of Information Acts are in your package today. I'll consider that you have them and that I've served them on you. There's also included in there a roughly 2.5-page letter that I sent to 5 different radio TV stations. I've not heard back yet. They only went out yesterday. I told you I was going to use every mechanism I could to get that road closed. It's not your problem. You don't see it every day. You probably don't even think about it, but only the time that I'm here. And I'm not trying to be difficult. The road needs to be closed. That's all it needs to be, is closed. We're protected liability. The 7 property owners are protected. And guys, you are exposing the public. Look at the pictures. Those are public people on that road. Somebody gets killed, are you going to step up? No, you're not going to step up. Why not just close the road, eliminate the problem? I'm paying for it 100%. You don't have to put up a dime. We close the road. We eliminate the risk. It's not like it's an important dirt strip, for God's sakes. Go take a look at it. Well, I really don't want to keep coming back and reminding you of this every single 2 weeks. I really don't, but I will. I will do it because you need to be reminded that you are risking people's lives on that road. Are we waiting for somebody to get hurt? Is that what we want to do? A young girl died 6 miles from my home in a pond. Went off a public road into a pond, for God's sakes. Well, I've got other things, but there's no sense in screaming at you about them. If we're going to take it to court, let's go. Let's get it done. That way we can close the gate, or you can have a public road. Okay? Can't we do that? Stop dragging your feet, please. That's all I'm asking. If you want to do it your way, I'm ready, willing, and able to do it. But let's do it. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Mr. Monroso. Okay. Next up, I have Ramon Rodriguez. Ramon, good morning. How are you?
Fine. I'm still energized from the fair last night.
That's great.
Good morning, supervisors and public. I'm here to speak again on the issue of health freedom, but it's mainly about abortion right now because I've read in a couple of news and posts. A lot of doctors are fearing for getting charged criminally in certain states. A woman in Texas had to go out of state because her unborn child has defects that they might not survive after birth. And also in Ohio, a 10-year-old girl who was a victim of a sexual crime has to go to another state to get an abortion because of her. She has been impregnated by the criminal. This is getting outrageous, and I'm really tired of certain people who've been complaining about COVID health public health orders, and they said that they don't want vaccines or masks because of health freedom. What about abortion? It's not just abortion, it's healthcare freedom, because women right now, with that ruling that happened in the Supreme Court a few weeks ago, they're putting their lives in danger. They're facing criminal charges in certain states. California will remain the state where abortion still remains legal, but it's going to affect mainly women of color and low-income women, and they could not find an abortion clinic or health centers for their healthcare needs. And freedom is for everyone. The last words of the pledge, with liberty and justice for all, it should apply for all, not just for some or a certain group, for all, including women. And also I want to state about the Dylan Harvey incident that happened in the 4th of July. He was not a criminal. He's not trying to kill a police officer. He has a mental health problem, a crisis. And I've seen this before. It happened with Francisco Moran. It happened with Kim Jackson. It happened with Garrett Schmidt, Trevor Seaver, and countless people that died in the hands of police in Stanislaus County and Modesto and elsewhere. I've been warning about this Forward Together in Modesto City Council meeting about having a cop present with a mental health worker if a person having a health issue. Because when a police, especially one that has their gun ready, that's going to antagonize the person suffering a mental health crisis, and we need to do a lot of work to provide help and not criminalizing a person who's suffering a mental health crisis, because this is getting out of hand, it's getting tired, and we need to start putting these reforms and solutions that we've seen in Oregon and Denver and even Sweden, where someone who has a mental health issue, they call that number and instead of saying the police, they send a mental health worker to calm the person down or take to the hospital for treatment instead of sending to jail. This is really sickening and sad. And all this Dylan is doing is he's asking for help. His dad called, and this neighbor called the police, and when the police came, his dad told the cop that he's suffering a mental health crisis and he needs to get his medicine, but the cop disregarded it. And you know what I find it really interesting is that cop who shot Dylan Harvey, he's part of the SWAT team, and he's also a buddy of disgraced cop Joseph LaMattia, who also killed 5 people, mainly people with mental health issues. This got to stop. We need to put help. We need to help people with mental issues. We need to invest in mental health care, and we need to provide alternatives instead of criminalizing people who are suffering a mental health crisis, because it's an outrage, and it needs to stop, because we had countless meetings with Forward Together and a lot of stuff, and it's not being put into action right now because it's going to continue. And mixing police violence with a mental health issue, it's not going to look pretty. It's going to be a disastrous assault, and people are going to die or end up incarcerated. And it's mainly the people who are suffering mental health issue. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Ramon, thank you very much. And I can't address your first issue, but with regard to just the last thing you were talking about, if you can stay around here today until we get to item 7-1, and we will have within that in our community corrections partnership budget, you'll see some things that we're doing to exactly address what you just talked about there at the end. So if you got time to hang around, we'd love for you to stay here. Okay, thank you. Okay, next up I have Stephen Morrow. Stephen, good morning. How are you?
Mr. Chairman, I'm doing fine. Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, Mr. Hayes, and Mr. Bose, this morning I'm just going to offer some general comments on the recent election and also our upcoming general election. First, congratulations to all who won, and I'm grateful, at least in this county, that those who did not prevail didn't immediately scream fraud or abuse or anything like that, like we've seen in other areas of the country. So we can be grateful for that. But it is a little disheartening that less than 30% of our registered voters turned out for the primary. our republic form of government doesn't function well if decisions are made by a relatively small percentage of the population. We know the turnout in the general election will be better, but it's still a little disheartening to see that. Final thing is we've got propositions on the ballot, a relatively small number this year, but look carefully at who's paying for the advertisements that you're going to be inundated with. Follow the money and see who's going to benefit and to make your own decisions on what they're saying. And is the decision really best for the state, or is the decision best for the supporters' pocketbooks? And look carefully before you make up your minds. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Stephen, thank you. And I don't know if we've had a chance to congratulate you on your appointment to the Regional Transportation Authority. I know recently you got appointed to that, and we appreciate all your participation, so thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next up I have LaPrice Reynolds. LaPrice, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, everybody. How you guys doing?
Good. Good to see you.
All right. I'm here to speak up on the wages, living wages for interim support. I spoke 2 weeks ago on that. It was kind of emotional, but I'm here today. Yeah, we need some support in that aspects of it. As a father, like I said before, of a child with a disabled situation, it's kind of hard to work with these wages that I'm working with. Like I said, it's not just for me, it's for him as well and others that will be dealing with him, like family. So I need you guys to reach into your hearts and make a good decision on this. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thanks, LaPrice. Okay, next up I have Esther Lambrana. Esther, good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
How did I do on the last name? Lambrana? Did I say that correct?
Yes, you said it
Very
correct.
good.
Thank you so much, and good morning to you all. I'm here today in regards to my mother, and I live an hour and a half away. I've been taking care of my mother for over a year when my brother passed away. Nobody else wanted to care for her, and I was not going to put her in a home. So I work full-time. I come and I take care of her, and at times it's very hard with the wages that, is given, but that's my mother. I love my mother, and I wasn't good, like I said, put her in a home. She's everything to me. And when all this came about, I stepped up, and I am glad that there is a program that will help out the elderly and disabled, and I'm glad for that program. If it wasn't for that program, she would probably end up being in a home. And like I said, I take care of her. I, do what needs to be done, and I go above and beyond because she's my mother. But I feel that the living wages needs to be increased. And like I said, that's why I'm here.
Okay. Thank you very much, Esther, for coming down here, or coming up here from Clovis, right? Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, next up I have Astrid Zuniga. Astrid, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Nice to see you all again.
Good to see you.
Unfortunate circumstances, but nice to see you all again. So I am here with my fellow home care providers. As you heard, we are asking for a living wage. When I was here 2 weeks ago, I addressed the fact that if we're not making this an attractive position. There was a recent audit done, and I'm not sure if you know it, but there is nearly 500,000 assessed IHSS hours out there that are going unmet just in this county alone. Just in this county. That's not across the state. That's just in this county. And if we aren't making this job something that people want to go in and do, there's people out there that aren't receiving baths, that aren't getting their medication, that aren't getting driven to doctor's appointments, that aren't getting food. We have to invest in this type of work. We are the lowest paid workers in this county. Lowest paid. We're paid lower than most In-N-Out burgers. The fact that we can't take the step to invest in this critical work that allows our communities most vulnerable to live in their homes and be provided care for by somebody they know, love, and trust says a whole lot if we don't take that step forward. On 4th of July weekend, I realized how much my son's care is needed. He almost died on me. We were in the hospital, and the nurses couldn't provide the care for him. I was there. I was providing that care. And if it wasn't for me, I'd want to make sure that whoever cares for him in his home would be the one that would stay there with him, change his diaper, put on his heart monitors and his oxygen for the nurses that were terrified to go near him because he's trying to rip all of his things off of him. This is critical work, you guys. And if we aren't investing in it, who's going to be there for somebody like my son? Who's going to be there for LaPrice's kid? Who's going to be there for all of these home care providers and their loved ones? And maybe somebody you know and love. It only takes a little bit of effort on y'all's part. Thank you.
Thank you, Astrid. Okay, next up, I have Sebastian Jones. Good morning, Sebastian. How are you?
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. Excuse my voice. I can't hear too good because just got back in from Texas this morning. A little tired, but I made it. As I was thinking when I was on the airline, what I'm gonna say. Says ain't too much you can say. Sebastian, you spoke on this here. About a year and a half ago, but I wasn't an ISH worker at that time. I was just being an activist and being a supporter. And now that I am, now y'all, if you guys know me, this is a job. I have an 87-year-old man. When I got him out of that place there, he had bed sores. Now he's good. Now that I'm in this here, and I commend my brothers and sisters down here. When I spoke a year and a half, you guys gave yourself a living wage. Do y'all remember that? I do. Now, why did y'all come first when that other group, the county, was trying to get, I don't know, a couple of dollars, I guess? But you guys gave yourself a living wage. I don't think that's fair for us. Now, we're asking, and I know I take care of a person. It can be a challenge. But I thank God that I'm getting older. Somebody may want to take care of me. And I don't want nobody doing a half job because they're not efficient or the money is not there. And you guys are getting older too. So your money may be strong now, but you never know, it may be weak later. And somebody come and take care of you. And let's look at it fairly. You guys are strengthened, y'all doing good. But think about the people. They shouldn't be down here, and especially Mr. Jones. I shouldn't be down here trying to wake y'all up to ask for a living increase. It was only $4.05 in Texas. I get back, it's still $6.80-something. Let's do right. You know it's time for this living expenses. It's just time. You can't keep them on a back in the day wages. Got a young lady drove all the way from Visalia, wherever she drove from, Clovis, to speak. This shouldn't happen. This should be automatic done. You guys should have been assessed in this year maybe a year and a half ago. Just like you approve for buildings and different things. These things come 3 and 4 years. Then add the people, your county workers. You know it's going to happen. Why wait and have people to come down here? It's sad, America, that people's got to come down here and basically crawl and beg. That's not right. It's time to make this stand. What are you holding for? Ask the federal government for some more money if you need it. I don't know if you guys beg for it, they probably just give it to you. Look at these brothers and sisters here. Open your heart, close your eyes, and think. Look at the price. Think. It's more than that to it. It's more than this for these people. It's sad. I am embarrassed that I'm down here telling you for a raise, a cost of living. I spent out more money taking care of this person. I want to thank you for this time. Sorry for getting a little carried away. But if you know me, I am who I am. But we must do the right thing. It's just time. No doubt about it. God bless you.
Thanks, Sebastian. Okay, that's the last speaker card I have for public comment. Anybody else want to come up? Come on up. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, everyone. My name is May Hicks, and I stand just to support the living wage because I am a registered nurse, 25 plus years, ICU and oncology. And this last year, I've had the pleasure of taking care of my 93-year-old mom who has Alzheimer's and dementia. And I stand to tell you that what I've seen is nothing compared to what I'm doing with her. And this is, like I said, I'm new to this part of this process. But what I have seen all of the IHSS workers do is just incredible. It's absolutely amazing to me. I don't know how they do it. But, and like I said, my worst day in ICU is when I lose 2 patients. But what I'm experiencing with my mom is like God horrible. So I thank you for your time, but I do support the living wage. Thank you.
Thanks, May. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
My name is Della Perales, and I'm a home care provider. I would like to just pose the question to everyone here in this room. What would you do if you didn't make it home tonight? Some of you have children in college. What if they don't make it home tonight? A junior high student that went to the mall and doesn't make it home tonight. A preschooler that fell on a playground doesn't make it home tonight. That's what happened to my grandson. He didn't make it home. 6 months in the hospital. I don't know what your heart would tell you to do. I can only tell you what my daughter's heart spoke to her. After 6 months, doctors told her, there's no more we can do here. We have 3 options for you, 3 facilities to have him placed. She said no. She didn't blink. She said, I'm taking my boy home. And she did. And thank God for the program, because she still needed to eat. She still needed a roof over her head. She was a working woman. She did have 20 years at a job. But what would your heart tell you to do? Just give it up to the state? I don't know. But this job saved her. But what you're offering today is really disappointing. The water is just right here, barely surviving. Everything that everyone here needs to sustain themselves. But her water's right there, just barely there. So I say, when you know right, you do right. So let's please do the right thing and give us a living wage. Thank you.
Thank you, Della. Okay, anybody else like to speak before we close the public comment period here? Yeah, again, this is just for public comment, nothing on the agenda.
I know this is for the
Perfect.
public comment.
Very good.
I'm with the IHSS people. I have a severely disabled son, and no one loves their kids more than their mom and dad. And to struggle, and I work with thousands of people that have disabled children. Sleepless nights, worn out, dying, their children dying, suffering, and these people need help. Putting food on the table, not just that, trying to get any kind of therapies for the people they're trying to help out, trying to heal them. If it was you in that position, wearing out mentally, and half these, most people are single moms and dads these days, because when someone's sick in the family, the whole family's sick, everyone suffers. I think that they need a lot more help. I'm not here for this on this agenda. When I saw it, it hit straight to my heart, because I see it daily, and I see patients come to my store crying because they cannot take care of their own children and families. And I want to fight for someone that really deserves it, because they're sacrificing their lives. It's hard to take care of yourself, let alone a child or someone else. If you were put in this position, I wish you could just live one day in the days that these people live, because you don't understand, like, you'd be given much more than the minimum. All right? That's all I wanted to say. Please help them out.
Okay, thank you. We just need, your name. Sorry for the record. I'm sorry.
My name is Jason David.
Thanks, Jason. Okay, very good. Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry, I will be quick. I wasn't going to speak at all, but I just felt like I wanted to say this and ask this of you guys. Joni Greep, for the record. And Chance, congratulations. There is nothing more challenging and more refining than parenthood, so I'm very excited for you. So just listening to these people speak, I mean, once again, I'm sure you guys all feel the same as me. Our county is a treasure, and it's because of the people in our county. And I know that you guys know my heart by now, that I've spoken in front of you so many times, and my heart is for our children. But not only our children were the bearers of the most insane burdens throughout our pandemic policies, but also our elderly and our disabled. They bore the brunt of pandemic policies to the extreme, and so much more harm was done, so much more harm was inflicted than any measurable good. So with that, I just wanted to bring awareness to you guys and to our community that the Los Angeles County Public Health Officer, she is going to be apparently reinstating a mask mandate, an indoor compulsory mask mandate again in the county of Los Angeles. And I believe it's Sacramento City Unified School District. They have also implemented another indoor mask mandate for their students. Is there measurable benefit? Is there a concrete, clear burden of proof that the harms that we know masking does to our children does to our disabled people who they can't even understand, and yet we're going to discriminate against them, kick them out of classrooms, kick them out of buildings if they cannot cover their face. I'm just asking you guys to consider a county resolution to make mask choice an option for our citizens. So that's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Joni. Okay. Anybody else? All right. Seeing nobody else, we will close the public comment period. Thank you guys all very much for being here and your comments. We're going to move on now to our consent calendar. Is there any item on the consent calendar that anybody up here on the dais would like to pull? Seeing none. Anybody from the audience, would you like to pull any consent items? Seeing none, then we will look for a motion on the consent calendar. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. Very good. Thank you. Let's move on to our public hearing, item 6.1, to consider adoption of the amended Northern and Central Delta Mendota Region Groundwater Sustainability Plan. And Rob and Christy, good morning, guys. How are you?
Morning. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good.
Good morning, Honorable Board, Chairman Withrow, CEO Hayes, and Council Bose. Before your board today is the amended Northern and Central Delta Mendota Region Groundwater Sustainability Plan, or GSP. It is a recommendation from DER to conduct a public hearing to consider approval and adoption of the amended Northern and Central Mendota Regional GSP, approve and adopt the resolution regarding the amended Northern and Central Mendota Regional GSP, then authorize the San Luis and Delta Mendota Water Authority, its consultants, and plan manager to take such other actions as may be reasonably necessary to submit the amended Northern and Central Delta Mendota Region Groundwater Sustainability Plan to the Department of Water Resources. That's kind of hard to say a lot.
There's a lot going on.
You know that?
You did good.
I have our water manager, Christy McKinnon, here to further explain our recommendations.
Good morning, board members.
Good morning, Christy.
Chairman Withrow, CEO Hayes, and Council Bose. I'm going to not go through this entirely because there's a lot. So we'll just go over some of the key points for your consideration and leave some time for questions. So just a brief history of groundwater management in California. In September of 2014, the governor signed the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, which included legislation to set framework for local public agencies to have authority in groundwater management, to give them local authority to manage these resources sustainably for the future. So the governor said that groundwater management in California is, of course, best accomplished locally because locals know the resources and the businesses and the beneficial uses better than the state government. So the Groundwater Sustainability Act required the formation of groundwater sustainability agencies. So again, these agencies were responsible for the management, and that includes development of groundwater sustainability plans. These plans are developed to avoid undesirable groundwater conditions and to mitigate overdrafts within the next 20 years. Excuse me. The Department of Water Resources, of course, oversees the regulation and provides technical assistance to these agencies for development of these plans and for implementation of the plans in compliance with the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. The State Water Resources Control Board is the enforcing agency. Other stakeholder input, such as input from disadvantaged communities or nonprofits and tribes, was considered in the development of these plans. After adoption of these amended GSPs that we're going to start discussing today for the Delta-Mendota Groundwater Subbasin, the agency will be responsible for implementing the plans through planned projects and management actions. So Stanislaus County includes four groundwater subbasins, and the county is a participating member in 5 of these groundwater sustainability agencies, who each agency has collectively worked with other agencies to develop these groundwater sustainability plans. And we have 5 of the plans that Stanislaus County is a participating member for implementing. So 2 of these plans were for critically overdrafted, high priority groundwater subbasins, and the one that we're going to discuss today in detail under this board item is for the Delta-Mendota subbasin. So critical overdraft means a basin that's subject to critical overdraft when there's continuation of present water management practices that would probably result in significant adverse overdraft-related environmental, social, or economic impacts. So that's the reason that the critical subbasins plans were due 2 years earlier in January of 2020. Here's just a map where you can see the San Joaquin groundwater basin, and the subbasins that are that kind of peachish area are high priority basins, and the ones that have the hash marks on top of them are the ones that are in critical overdraft. And again, these classifications are based on population considerations, groundwater pumping contributions, the number of wells, etc. At the end of my presentation, I'll show a slide that shows some information about where you can find additional information regarding the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act at the California Department of Water Resources website. Here's just a picture to show you the subbasins within Stanislaus County. And as you can see, some of them span into other counties, such as the San Joaquin County. And then you'll see the Delta-Mendota subbasin, which we're speaking of today. The Modesto and Turlock subbasins are high priority. We just adopted the groundwater sustainability plans for those subbasins this year in January, so they were 2 years out. So the Delta-Mendota subbasin is really interesting because it spans a long region, and we have 8 groundwater sustainability agencies collaborating together to adopt one amended groundwater sustainability plan. There have been 115 basins who have submitted their plans to the Department of Water Resources as of July 2022. And out of all of those, only 8 have been approved by the department. So with that said, after the plans were submitted, the department had 2 years to review the plans for the critically overdrafted subbasins, and upon completion of the review, they provided the determination that the plan for the Delta Mendota subbasin was incomplete. So the subbasin had 180 days to make appropriate amendments to address the deficiencies. 8 of the plans actually were approved by the department. So these are critically overdrafted subbasins too. As you can see, I don't believe any of these are in our region. I've received information indicating that the department hasn't approved any plans in counties that are primarily agriculturally based or within the San Joaquin groundwater basin. So back in February 2017, the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors approved the adoption of the Memorandum of Understanding with Merced County to create the Northwestern Delta Mendota Groundwater Sustainability Agency. So within the subbasin, we have subcommittees that collaborate together to develop these plans. So within the Central Delta Mendota Groundwater Sustainability Agency, we have West Stanislaus Irrigation District, Delta Mendota 2 GSA, Northwestern Delta Mendota GSA, Patterson Irrigation District, the City of Patterson, Wydron Water District GSA, and Oro Loma Water District GSA, collaborating together. This sub-region is one of 6 regions that are coordinating and adopting plans that have to be consistent for the entire subbasin. So there you can see a picture of the subbasin. It's within those hashed marks, and the orangish red color is the northern and central Delta Mendota region for the western area in Stanislaus County. So when it comes down to it, the whole issue with regards to the identified deficiencies is that within these 6 plans, the agencies didn't use consistent data and methodologies. They didn't establish common definitions for undesirable results in the subbasin, and they didn't set sustainable management criteria required specifically by the regulations. Management areas were established, and the department felt that they didn't sufficiently address the plan requirements. So all of the agencies with the subbasin needed to work together to make one plan that could consistently manage the basin in its entirety. So the Groundwater Sustainability Agencies provided a 90-day notice that the public hearings would be conducted to adopt an amendment to the plan. The amended plan must be adopted by each of the agencies by July 20th, 2022 in order to meet the department's deadline. Plan amendments were completed throughout the subbasin. They were amended to have compiling and analyzing data in a standardized fashion. The agencies worked together to establish common definitions for undesirable results across the subbasin. For example, thresholds were submitted for undesirable results indicating that in about 50% of the monitoring wells by principal aquifer, minimum thresholds were established for water quality using 1,000 milligrams per liter for total dissolved solids. In addition, groundwater levels were established by using historic low conditions for water year 2016. Up to 2 feet of additional inelastic subsidence attributable to extractions and no additional land subsidence after 2040. Monitoring well networks were established for subbasin for monitoring groundwater levels, also used to represent change in groundwater storage and depletion of interconnected surface waters, water quality, and land subsidence. Identification throughout the subbasin was completed to indicate that lower aquifer sustainable yield would be 101,000 acre feet per year based on observed extractions during water year 2015, and then a sustainable yield for the upper aquifer of 403,000 acre feet per year. So after all those consistency items were established, they removed the management area section of the plan as recommended by the department. And then they also clarified the need to fill data gaps, analyze more data, and revise objectives as needed in the future in order to meet the subbasin's sustainability goals. So as Rob was recommending, the department has determined that there will be no fiscal impact with the adoption of the amended GSP. Existing staff will continue to oversee applicable work. We recommend that your board approve and adopt the amended Northern and Central Delta Mendota Region Groundwater Sustainability Plan and authorize the San Luis and Delta Mendota Water Authority, its consultants, the plan manager, to take such other actions as may be reasonably necessary to submit the amended plan to the California Department of Water Resources by no later than July 20th, 2022. These actions are consistent with the board's priority of delivering efficient public service and infrastructure by ensuring a coordinated approach towards regional groundwater resource management. If the plan is not adopted, the groundwater resources of the basin could be subject to regulation by the State of California Water Resources Control Board. That means that the board could impose requirements for probationary basin status, perhaps including fees such as $300 per well and $40 per acre foot, late fees and additional penalties, meters, and extraction reports until the probationary status is removed and the plans are determined to be sufficient. In addition, the Water Control Board could require an interim plan under their authority to directly manage the groundwater extraction until additional deficiencies are corrected. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to do my best to answer them.
Very good, Christy. Thank you very much, and that was great. You didn't miss a beat when all the lights went off. You just kept going.
I thought I was they're not entertained. They're going to turn the lights off.
That was great. No, you did good. Okay, thank you. So any questions from the board before we open the public hearing? You know, I've got a couple if nobody else does here. So it's funny how we started this off, this presentation about how Jerry Brown says that back when we started the State Groundwater Management Act, when it first began, that it's better managed locally. And I agree, and we all agree, and that's why we got involved in this process probably more earlier than probably any other county in the state because it was critical to us. But as I see this evolve, I can see that the DWR, there's a lot of lip service going on here from the Department of Water Resources, and it really, you know, we look at all these plans that have been presented so far, these groundwater sustainability plans that have been presented to the Department of Water Resources and from the different agencies, and you can see that I think you said 6 or 8 have only been approved, and those aren't probably none of those were in our San Joaquin Valley, none of them are in agriculture areas. And so they say, yeah, it's better to be managed locally, but they're not approving any of these plans. They're sending them back, and now we're having to do amendments. And I can just see that ultimately what's going to happen here is that the state's probably just going to do this on their own without us. And it's just, we're going through these motions. It's very discouraging. They're working very hard, and nobody does know our groundwater better than our area, our people here, our farmers here, our agencies here. And then for us to have to go through all this work to do this, and in the end, this is what's happening here. They're not approving these plans. They're sending them back to us. They're not going to approve them until they get to a point that that's what they want, and not necessarily what's best for our groundwater and our agencies here. So, I mean, I can see this one that we're here today talking about, the northern and central Delta Mendota region. That's kind of a mess anyway. There are so many agencies there. They all want to do their own thing. I think there were, how many different plans? 6 or 8 different GSPs that were presented.
I think there's 8.
8, but which is frustrating in itself that area wasn't able to get together and come together with one plan. Doesn't surprise me, but that one was rejected. But I just think that's just the norm. That these, in spite of that, I think that we're going to continue to see these things rejected, and I just think we have got to get more involved in what's going on here. We have our groundwater sustainable agencies are very sincere, doing good work, trying to do the right thing, coming up with plans that they think work, and just one after another is getting rejected here. And I think, I don't know how we do this legislatively or what it's going to take for us to get more involved and get Sacramento to help us through this process and not end up with us just going through this motion and ultimately just being them doing what they're going to do. I mean, it's just that critical to the billions and billions of dollars of assets that we have here that are at risk here, at risk of being lost if the state is able to just take control of these things, which is, it seems like the directions it's going. Okay, that's my rant. I'm sorry.
So I would offer, though, this one is not the norm in Stanislaus County. So let's see if the Modesto Basin or the Turlock Basin, if they get rejected, it'll probably be a lot more, because they're a little more, homogeneous isn't the right word, but more equal. This is a tough area.
Yeah, this one was a tough cluster to begin with, but yeah. Okay.
But I agree with everything you said. Don't get me wrong.
That's good. Okay, very good. If there's no other comments or questions, then I will open the public hearing. Anybody would like to comment? Oh, I'm sorry, we do have one written comment that's come in that we will not read, but for Environmental Law Foundation. Yeah, it's there for people to read. It'll be available online if people want to read that. Very good. Seeing no public comment period, I will close the public comment period. It's great, I get to use this when I do this. Okay, bring it back to the board for any type of further questions or a motion. Or something.
Okay. So I do, this one is a cluster. We're still going to move it forward. We need to move it forward. There's no doubt the state, we still have to follow the state guidelines, and it was sent back to us. So I'm going to go ahead and move the motion, and hopefully this time it works. The 3 staff recommendations.
Very good. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one that we had was just to reschedule here. Rob, go ahead.
Exactly. It's very similar to what we just did today in regards to the public hearing. We'd just like to reschedule it's going to be another tongue twister, the San Joaquin Groundwater Subbasin Groundwater Sustainability Plan to July 26.
Okay, very good. On this one, I want to comment too. I know, and Buck, you go ahead, Buck.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I'll leave that to you.
I want us to, we've got farmers out there on the east side that are working very hard to try to help with our groundwater sustainability, actually spending millions of their own dollars to try to get in place recharge systems out there. And I think so far that some of the stuff that they've done, like I said, they've done this with money out of their own pocket, but it really is for the benefit of them and for others, for the groundwater basin. And so I would hope before this one, excuse me, comes back to us, that we can, allergy time. I'm hoping that we can revisit some of the actions that are happening out there, some of the work that's being done out there, and see if somehow those can be incorporated in this plan before this one comes back at the end of the month. Anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about. I don't know, Buck,
Same thing.
Yeah,
Just
Buck
make sure that those projects are included.
we've actually gone out, and Rob, we got to get you out there to see them too. We've been out and visited them, Christy too, and seen these projects, what they have going out there, and there's some good stuff, good work being done out there, really working to recharge basins, and so hopefully we can look at those before we come forward with any final thing here at the end of the month. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So that was just a simple one. Just we're looking for a motion to reschedule.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Okay, thank you guys very much for your work. Good work. Okay, we will move on now to item 7.1, approval of the Community Corrections Partnership Plan for the 2011 Public Safety Realignment for budget year 2022 and 2023. Mark and Trish, good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
We'll see how well you guys handle when the lights go out here. This is like a test.
That sounds like a test.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Chairman Withrow, members of the board, CEO Hayes, and County Council Bowes, Mark Ferrer, the county's Chief Probation Officer, and it is my pleasure to present to you the Community Corrections Partnership, or CCP, Public Safety Realignment Plan for budget year 22-23. Also assisting me with today's presentation will be our crime analyst, Tricia Bouchard, Sheriff's Office Captain Frank Martinez, Modesto Police Chief Brendan Gillespie, our BHRS Director Ruben Imperial, and the county's Public Defender Jennifer Jennison. As part of the board agenda item, we have included the full 22-23 CCP plan, which includes the history of the plan, outcomes, programming, and statistics. I have also asked the other department heads or department staff from the various departments involved with the CCP to be available in person if there are questions or issues related to their specific departments. I am going to start with a brief history and overview of the Community Corrections Partnership. On April 4th, 2011, then California Governor Jerry Brown signed Assembly Bill 109, which realigned custodial and community supervision responsibilities from the state level to the local level. AB 109 made some of the largest and most pivotal changes to the criminal justice system in California history. AB 109 was enacted to address the overcrowding in California's 33 state prison facilities and to reinvest criminal justice resources to support programs and evidence-based practices. The bill revised the definition of a felony and allowed individuals who do not have statutorily defined serious violent or sex offenses in their criminal histories or following their most recent conviction to serve their state prison sentences in county jails instead of state prison. As part of serving that local prison sentence, the legislation also allowed courts to suspend part of the sentence and release individuals on a form of community supervision entitled mandatory supervision. While on mandatory supervision, the individual is supervised by the probation officer in accordance with the terms, conditions, and procedures generally applicable to persons placed on probation. AB 109 also established the Post-Release Community Supervision, or PRCS, classification of supervision. Under PRCS, populations of offenders released from state prison are supervised by the counties rather than state parole. In all 58 counties' probation departments were designated by the Board of Supervisors as the agency to supervise these releases from state prison on PRCS. At its peak, the state prison population hit 173,000 inmates. Today, the California state prison population sits under 97,000. Shortly after the signing of AB 109, Governor Brown also signed a trailer bill, Assembly Bill 117. AB 117 delayed the operative date of AB 109 to October 1st, 2011, and required each county to establish an Executive Community Corrections Partnership, or CCP. AB 117 required the Executive CCP to recommend a local plan to the County Board of Supervisors annually for approval. The CCP Executive Committee is statutorily required to consist of the following individuals: the Chief Probation Officer, who is the chair, the Sheriff, the District Attorney, the Public Defender, the presiding judge of the Superior Court or his designee, and a chief of police, which is currently Modesto Police Chief Brendan Gillespie. Further, the legislation asks that the Board of Supervisors appoint one department head from social services, mental health, or the department head from alcohol and substance abuse programs. This board subsequently selected the Behavioral Health and Recovery Services Director to serve in this capacity. Annually, each county is given an allocation of funding to manage the AB 109 population. This funding is referred to as 2011 Public Safety Realignment and is funded by a portion of 1.06% of state sales tax revenue that is directed to 2011 realignment programs. Funding is allocated using a permanent formula based on caseload size, crime and population, and other special factors that determine county-by-county base allocation shares. State sales tax receipts in excess of prior year base amounts are deemed as growth and distributed to counties using a separate formula consisting of reducing the number of probation failures statewide and reducing the number of state prison commitments for new convictions. Growth funds received for a given fiscal year increase the base in the following fiscal year. This is known as a rolling base. Should state sales tax receipts fall short of prior year base amounts, counties will receive their base allocation shares of the amount received. Growth funding will not resume until the highest prior year base has been restored. Historically, the CCP has funded positions for the Sheriff's Office, Probation Department, District Attorney, Public Defender, Behavioral Health and Recovery Services, the Community Services Agency, and community-based organizations. This is the 12th year that we have brought the CCP plan before this board, with all 11 prior plans being unanimously approved. The last time we came before this board, Chairman Withrow asked for our crime analyst, Tricia Burchard, to report to this board about the results we are seeing with some of the realigned populations. I will now turn the presentation over to Ms. Burchard, who will provide a brief overview of the impact programs have with our offender population at the Day Reporting Center. Our Day Reporting Center is located on Hackett Road across from the jail and serves as a one-stop shop for offenders to access all the services they may need to be successful following a release from custody. Programs and staffing at the Day Reporting Center are funded through the CCP. Tricia?
Thank you, Chief Ferrer. Good morning, Board. I will be speaking today about the Day Reporting Center during the 2021 calendar year. In 2021, 1,243 referrals were issued for the 10 programs that were offered at the Day Reporting Center. Individuals may receive referrals to one or more programs. The programs offered cover a variety of topics, from parenting training to tattoo removal. Some of the programs have a set time frame, like batterer's treatment, while others, like employment assistance or substance abuse intervention, are individually driven and will take as long as the individual requires. Some individuals may also be ordered by the court to attend specific programs. The image you see before you is called a tree map, and it displays the referrals issued to each program. The larger the square or rectangle, the greater number of referrals issued to that program. And conversely, the smaller the rectangle or square, the fewer the number of referrals issued to that program. Before receiving one of the 1,243 referrals to the Day Reporting Center, individuals are first assessed. Those individuals found to be either moderate or high risk of committing a new felony crime are eligible to be referred to the Day Reporting Center. Individuals who are found to be of low risk are referred to organizations in the community for their educational needs. In 2021, 733 individuals attended programs at the Day Reporting Center. Of those 733, 47% were moderate risk and 53% were high risk. Of the individuals who were found to be of moderate risk, 30% completed a program, and 22% of individuals who were found to be of high risk also completed a program. Completions are determined by meeting all of the requirements of the specific program, which could include, but are not limited to, attending a specific number of sessions, completing assigned work, or maintaining a job. However, some individuals commit a new crime after completing a program. When that happens, it is said that the individual has recidivated. Recidivism is defined as a conviction of a new crime that is committed within 3 years from the date the individual ended a program. Recidivism is best viewed over a period of time due to the length of the observational period. The numbers are subject to change due to time and/or as trials are completed. Only the observational period for individuals who completed a program in 2017 or 2018 have concluded. The observation periods for the other years are still ongoing. The data presented on the graph before you represents 100% of the individuals that completed a program during the last 5 years. The portion of the bars depicted in blue shows what percentage of individuals have not subsequently been convicted of committing a new crime, whereas the portion in gray shows the percentage of individuals who have been convicted of committing a new crime during the observational period. On average, in 2017 and 2018, 30.6% of the individuals who successfully completed a program were convicted of committing a new crime during their observation period. The other 69.4% of the individuals who successfully completed a program were not convicted of committing a new crime during the observation period. On average, 59.6% of individuals who were unsuccessful in completing a program in 2017 and 2018 were convicted of committing a new crime during their observation period. Alternatively, 40.4% of individuals who were unsuccessful in completing a program were not convicted of committing a new crime during their observation period. During 2017 and 2018, individuals who completed a program were 71.8% more successful during the observational period, with recidivism reduced by nearly half, or 48.7%. Program completions contribute to Stanislaus County's priority to support strong and safe neighborhoods. Thank you for your time. I can answer questions now or at the conclusion of the presentation.
Very good. Good numbers, Trish. Any
Thank
questions
you.
for Trish? These are great results, I think. I think it really shows that we're heading in the right direction. And anyway, I'll let us finish the rest of the stuff, and then we'll talk some more. Okay, keep
All
going,
right,
guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so building off of our base staffing levels for year 11, the CCP had the following new recommendations for our 22-23 CCP plan. The CCP is recommending the extension of the funding for the Community Assessment, Response, and Engagement, or CARE program, through budget year 26-27. CARE started in 2018 as an innovative approach to homelessness that aimed to identify service gaps that would increase accountability and alignment, developing a system and service model that had never previously been utilized in the community. The program initially focused on the homeless population that was causing the largest drain on resources, specifically law enforcement resources in the city of Modesto. Last year, the CCP came before this board with a proposal to expand the program and fund a case management team to complement the existing CARE program. The proposal only provided for funding for 3 years in an effort to evaluate its effectiveness. The board subsequently approved the proposal. Over the last year, the CARE program has demonstrated success and effectiveness, most notably expanding into other areas of the county, such as Turlock, and assisting clients with services, supports, and housing. The CCP is now recommending the funding cover the costs associated with the case management component of the program, referred to as CARE 2.0, for each year of the CCP's 5-year budget plan. The CCP is recommending an increase in funding for the data warehouse project for the probation department from $55,690 to $255,690 for budget years 22-23 and 23-24. In the 15-16 realignment plan, the CCP came before this board with a proposal for a data warehouse project that would allow justice partners such as our district attorney's office, probation department, and the sheriff to collectively store and analyze data. That proposal was approved. When the data warehouse was created, it was developed on Oracle databases The request for additional funding would move the data warehouse from Oracle to Microsoft SQL, which is more cost-effective, and give us the ability to enhance the program, build statistical dashboards to better analyze data, and measure the effectiveness of programs, and allow other agencies to send and add their own data through the program. The CCP is also recommending one-time funding for the probation department in the amount of $200,000 to contract with an outside vendor to enhance the department's recruitment strategies. The department is currently experiencing significant staffing shortages for entry-level probation corrections officers assigned to juvenile hall and deputy probation officers assigned to field services. In the deputy probation officer 1-2 classification, the department has 28 vacancies, resulting in a 31% vacancy rate, while the probation corrections officer 1-2 classification has 25 vacancies, resulting in a 50% vacancy rate. The recommendation for one-time funding would result in the probation department contracting with an outside vendor who specializes in recruitment services for law enforcement entities. The outside vendor would assist our department with designing and hosting a recruitment website, conducting research and assisting with a recruitment strategy, and developing an ongoing recruitment campaign. The CCP is also recommending one-time funding in the amount of $2 million to replace aging cubicles, carpet, workstations, and furnishings for staff assigned to the probation department's adult division, located at 801 11th Street in Modesto. These existing items are over 20 years old. Stains can no longer be successfully removed from the carpet. Workstations are not ergonomically correct, and the fabric for existing cubicles has been subject to tearing and are breaking down. I will now invite Sheriff's Office Captain Frank Martinez to review the requests from the Sheriff's Office.
Frank, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Good to see you.
So the Board of State Community Corrections, which governs Title 15 jail standards for the state of California, in which we must comply with, are preparing to make some changes to the standards set that we must comply with. One of those is going to be to increase the amount of time individuals are required to be out of their cell for recreation. Currently, it sits at 3 hours. It's getting ready to increase to 10 hours effective October of this year. And so in October, we'll have to start obtaining compliance with that. Generally, 90% of our population far exceeds this expectation right now. The challenge is going to be with our individuals that are deemed administrative segregation. Those are individuals who are the highest security level. They require 2 deputies to move them. Oftentimes, they're either housed by themselves or they have a cellmate. They can't go with anybody else, or our mental health population that can't program with other individuals. That population right now is probably getting to 3 to 4 hours a week. Unfortunately, with the staffing as it sits right now, we do not have the staff to ensure that all this population is receiving their 10 hours a week. Our line staff not only are responsible for recreation, they're also responsible for escorting medical providers, responding to critical incidents, visits, official visits, court, you name it, they're doing it. So we're requesting the 4 positions to be dedicated to, essentially we're calling them yard deputies. These 4 deputies would focus solely on ensuring that this group of our population receives the 10 hours of recreation, and their sole focus would be providing recreation services to this population. In addition, we're requesting 2 mental health deputies. Currently, we have 2 mental health deputies who receive advanced training when it comes to dealing with the mental health population, identifying crisis, de-escalating situations, and unfortunately, the need for mental health services has increased. The 2 deputies we have can no longer sustain the need of our mental health population. Right now, they're escorting our medical providers around to see clients one-on-one. They're attempting to engage with the population to meet daily needs, trying to get them engaged to come out of their cell for showers, recreation, explain court proceedings, engage with family members, work on discharge plans with this population, working with providers outside communities, and then once released, they transport to a safe and secure location based on the discharge plan for specific individuals. As our mental health population has grown, we're requesting 2 additional mental health deputies to join this team. So in total, we have 4 mental health deputies serving the mental health population, working with providers just to ensure adequate care and resources for this population while in our custody. We're also requesting the additional 1 custodial position to assign to a medical deputy. Currently, and this is specific to our Sheriff's Extension's East Campus, which is our maximum security facility consisting of 480 maximum security beds, a 15-bed hospital unit, and a 63-bed mental health unit. Everyone at this facility is behind a door. They require escort to and from their cells. There are no day room type settings in this facility. So currently we have 1 medical deputy who's responsible for escorting all our medical providers around to see the various population require medical services. Just like mental health, we've seen an increase in individuals requesting medical care. Currently, if the medical deputy is not available, a lot of these individuals have their needs rolled over to the next day, and so we're having to roll triage and roll low-level type requests over to the next day. The addition of another additional medical deputy would assist us in ensuring there's less rollovers, so keeping up with the demand, and just providing a better quality of medical care to our population. We're also requesting a one-time funding amount of $1 million. This is kind of tied to the recreation and the 4 deputies I just previously discussed. Logistically, where our administrative segregation inmates are housed at, they often share one recreation yard, and so logistically there's not enough space to ensure that everybody has 10 hours out of their cell without compromising their safety or the safety of the staff. We're not going to utilize closets or spaces that are not intended for recreation. So unfortunately, we don't have logistically the space needed to provide that service. So we were looking to build an outdoor recreation area consisting of 24 individualized recreation areas with free access to a restroom, water, all the Title IV 24 requirements, protection from the elements. And this outside area would allow us to safely and securely provide that 10 hours and ensure we're not only meeting the 10 hours, but likely going well above that 10 hours for this population. And that would be on existing land right outside our jail facility. Currently, the focus of the Sheriff's Department is to really try and expand the vocational service to our inmate population. Programming is ideal. We have a lot of in-classroom type programming, but jobs and vocational opportunities is what we're really trying to focus on. And so we're looking to request funding to purchase new equipment to enhance not only the current vocational opportunities by purchasing new equipment, replacing old equipment, and so some of the things we request or we would purchase with this new request is a truck, tractor a trailer to transport livestock, and construction equipment and new landscaping equipment. And then we're also requesting a ongoing cost of $250,000, which is help us to sustain costs associated with vocational training, as well as expand and make improvements in future years. We're looking to create a correctional treatment team dedicated to serving the programming population. This would consist of 1 case manager, a clinical vocational social worker, and 1 custody deputy. This team would work with the individuals participating in a program or facility. They conduct assessments, ensure that each individual is receiving need-specific type education and training. They provide counseling services, one-on-one counseling service in group settings. They'd instruct, evaluate courses, identify new courses, and then they'd work with community members to identify barriers for the individual, knock down those barriers, so when they transition back into the community, all barriers are removed, and there's a plan for this individual. And they'd also work with the community to identify jobs for this population. And then expand vocational training program, the amount of $2,532,000. Currently, our programs for vocational are spread out across our campus. It's not ideal, so we're looking to converge all our programming for vocational services to one site. Currently, we have an area with barns, areas for livestock. We're looking to essentially reallocate all our sources to one site, one campus, It'll improve efficiency, security, and just a better overall quality of service. Currently, that site is not electrically where it needs to be to allow for these changes. And so part of this process would be upgrading the electrical system to allow for welding to be moved over there. We're looking to create an automotive bay for individuals to learn basic automotive skills to help them find jobs in the community. And then there'll be a whole ag component with livestock, gardening to help our offenders. And so this would allow us to centralize all our vocational services into one site. It would also allow for one deputy to provide the programming aspect of it and security, and 2 civilian instructors who could teach both the ag component, construction, and the automotive piece of the request. We're requesting a one-time funding amount of $1,900,000 to increase safety in our facilities. 2016 to present, unfortunately, we've had 7 individuals successfully attempt to harm themselves by jumping from the top tier of our facilities to the bottom tier. Unfortunately, one of those were successful in their attempt, and the other 6 were sent out to the hospital with major medical needs. We were able to prevent 4 individuals from jumping just through proactiveness and our staff being aware of their surroundings, so that we were able to prevent 4 of them. But so we have seen an increase in individuals attempting harm through this way, so we're looking to fully enclose our upper tier at all our facilities and prevent them from using this mechanism to try and harm themselves. In the past CCC plans, AB 900 expansion was funded at 25% of the actual cost by the facilities. Due to the nature of the detention operations and accounting, it was determined that the cost would move to fund 2 sergeants and 25 deputy sheriff custodial positions that would be proportional to 25% and reflect the actual cost of the facility. This would also allow the Sheriff's Department to no longer use the separate legal budget unit for adult detention expansion. We're also requesting a phased approach to staffing Phase 3 AB 900 staffing. That consists of 34 positions, 32 deputies, 2 civilian staff, since we'd be taking a phased approach as opposed to requesting all budgeting in one single year. And currently, the medical contract allows for 1,747 beds between all detention facilities, both adult and juvenile, in the county. Once everything is fully open, there will be potential for 1,982 beds to be fully occupational or operational. This will increase the jail medical contract. The $150,000 is estimated cost for 25% of increases as a placeholder in years 4 and 5.
That's it.
That's it for me. I can answer questions now, or I can wait till the end.
Great, thanks, Frank. Any questions for Frank right now? Okay, we might catch you later. Thanks, Frank.
Okay, I will now invite BHRS Director Ruben Imperial to review the request from BHRS.
Ruben, good morning. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good morning, Chairman Withrow, Board of Supervisors, Council, County Council Bowes, and CEO Hayes. I'm here to present on the BHRS recommendations. So over the last, I think, probably several months, we've brought various recommendations regarding community mental health crisis response, and primarily those recommendations were a partnership we have been forming and planning we've been conducting with the Modesto Police Department. And through those conversations, we've also mentioned that we've been working with Sheriff Dirksky and his team on a similar model for the county and the unincorporated areas and potential partnerships with our local cities. So today, we're beginning to put in place the budgets and the staffing to further that planning. The first recommendation here is to fund 2 emergency medical technicians, different from the Modesto Police Department model for mental health crisis response, where we are embedding a clinician with a police officer. We're going to be embedding a clinician with an EMT team that would be responding by ambulance instead of police car. They would be called out to sites that would be first cleared by law enforcement, but they would be responding and as quickly as possible and getting there to help address the situation and providing mental health interventions. Next slide. In addition to the EMTs, we're also recommending that the CCP fund the mental health clinician staffing for this team as well. And the amount there, the initial $114,000, is to cover the remaining amount of money that is needed to sustain those positions after a grant that we received. The previous recommendations I brought to you before in terms of launching mobile crisis response teams were funded by grant funding. And the CCP is recommending to sustain those programs and carry them forward. And what you'll see is the first recommendation is to cover the unfunded amount for the first fiscal year, and then for the remaining years, that's the ongoing cost for the program. And we continue to work with the police department and the sheriff's department on the operational plans. We've been hiring the staff for the crisis response team, been able to bring on our case management and peer support positions. We're actually making some hiring the manager this week or in the next few weeks, and we've now are proceeding with actually the clinician recruitments after the department's prioritized recruiting clinicians for our internal outpatient and assessment teams. We are now making progress in terms of moving forward with the clinician recruitments as well. So this recommendation is in line with our broader strategy that I brought to you as far as our strategic plan, where we are increasing access and emergency response services for the community. And the last recommendation is funding to conduct a community planning process that would result in a recommendation on the viability of a local program modeled after Homeboy Industries in Los Angeles, California. We have a great network of local mental health and social service agencies in our community, and as a department, as a mental health department and a substance use disorder treatment department, we have begun to see more and more of a need to support individuals that are involved in the criminal justice system that do not necessarily have a severe mental illness or a severe substance use disorder. And we see more and more requests for the mental health department for us to continue to provide services for this population beyond our mandate. Second, we have, through our community planning processes, including reaching out to our diverse communities and working along Sheriff Dirksey, for instance, with Project Resolve, and Chief Gillespie in the City of Modesto with Forward Together, see the need for a community-based rehabilitation program that would support individuals involved in the criminal justice system. And we do not see, and we see the need for a planning process primarily because we do not see a local organization that can take on this role immediately. As well, we need to really get the community support and buy-in, and also really understand the needs of the community, so as we implement this program, we're able to meet the needs of the criminal justice population in our community. So the funding would be to secure the services of support staff to facilitate these conversations and planning, and even do some best practice and benchmarking of programs like Homeboy Industries in Los Angeles and other such programs throughout the state of California as well. And that concludes the recommendations for BHRS.
Great, thanks, Ruben. Any questions for Ruben right now, or? Okay, nothing right now. We'll come back. Thanks, Ruben.
Okay, I'm going to invite Modesto Police Chief Brendan Gillespie to review the CCP's recommendations for the Modesto Police Department.
Brandon, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Chairman Withrow, CEO Hayes, Board of Supervisors, Brandon Gillespie, Modesto Police Chief. And the proposal before you today regarding the CCP funding for the Modesto Police Department really revolves around mental health and homelessness. We know it's a big issue in our city, and one of the ways to reduce recidivism is to try to divert those that we can, that are appropriate and feasible, out of the criminal justice system. And so, as I think everybody's well aware, the City of Modesto started a community health and assistance team referred to as CHAT. And we started that early, really got it going in mid last year. We started with 4 full-time outreach workers. We've since been able to leverage a little bit of City of Modesto ARPA money to add 2 more outreach workers to that program, totaling 6, and those 6 just came on board. And we're continuing to see, and I'll get into some statistics here in a minute, but we continue to see success in being able to divert 911 calls away from police officers and to our CHAT team. And so the proposal before you today is to expand that funding. There is funding, HUD funding for the 4 CHAT positions actually currently expires at the end of this year. And then we have ARPA money that was allocated for 2 more positions, but that also expires in the next few years. So what we're looking here is actually not only sustain the program that we have going, but to actually expand it so we can expand our CHAT program to 7-day-a-week coverage. So that would be a total of 12 positions for our CHAT team that we're looking to fund for a longer period of time than we currently have funding for. If you look at mental health calls for service and quality of life type service related typically to homelessness, the city the last 2 years consistently has seen about 19,000 calls for service, give or take, in the city of Modesto. About 12,000 or so of those are calls that we consider to not have any safety-related keywords that could potentially be eligible for an alternative response model such as CHAT to respond to. About 7,000 of those calls for service, thereabouts, do have some type of safety-related keywords that would be more appropriate of a safety concern that we would need an officer, or as Ruben talked about, a crisis response model. We're re-implementing a mobile crisis response model, or a co-response model, where we have mental health clinicians ride with our officers and respond to those calls that do have safety-related issues. And I'll get into that in a minute. But when we look at our total calls for service in the city of Modesto, it's anywhere between 11 and 13% of the calls for service that have these mental health or quality of life issues, and then 19,000, which is that 19,000 mark. So what we've seen so far with calls for service is that just this year, our MT CHAT workers have made a contact of total of 804 citizens from 911 calls for service. 90% of the people that they've contacted only once, and that goes to some of the success that they're having in placing people and getting them out of homelessness or dealing with mental health issues. 10% were contacted more than 2 times, or 2 or more times, excuse me. When we also look at statistics for what we've seen just year to date with the CHAT team, they've completed 744 ESRI entries, which is entries that are making into our homeless management information system. They have services accepted, and that could go from a driver's license voucher to many different things, but almost 3,000 services accepted. Services refused is 340. Placement into shelter is a success. 182 so far this year have been placed into shelter, and 5 people have been placed into housing. And so these are all calls for service that are diverted from law enforcement, that are dealing outside the criminal justice system, hoping to have long-term solutions so that these people aren't in the criminal justice system and recidivating and continuing to be involved in that system. Along with this proposed funding also is to add ongoing funding for 5 years for a mental health clinician in that co-response model. We currently have 1 year of funding that we're working with BHRS through ARPA to fund 2 mental health clinicians, but this proposal would actually extend that for 5 years and allow us to continue our MCERT program. And then finally, the last position in this is for an analyst. Data is important. I think we all make sure that we try to use data to be data-driven in what we're doing. And so there is an analyst position in here to collect data and continue to report back so we can make tweaks to these programs as necessary. So that's the highlights of what this funding would do for the CHAT team and our MCERT team, and happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Very good. Any questions for the chief? Vito.
Please, Chief, thank you very much for coming in today. Is it the 911 operator that's trying to determine, or do the police respond to each one of the calls and then determine themselves whether the chat has to respond?
So both. If as this program's evolved, we have dispatchers who are looking at the calls for service and also can earmark that call for service for chat. But we also have supervisors and chat workers out in the field that if they read a call and determine it's appropriate for chat, they can also actually request that call and go to that call. So it's kind of multiple layers looking to see what is appropriate or not for that type of response.
And 11 to 13% is what the amount of calls that you believe can be responded by the chat team or something similar?
Correct. 11 to 13% is the amount of calls that have those. And let me see if I actually have the percent. It's a smaller percent. So when we look at that, 11 to 13% have quality of life or mental health issues related to them. But when we look at chat, the ones that were identified, it's a smaller percent. I want to say in the neighborhood of, I don't know if I have it right in front of me. I can get back to you, but it's a smaller percentage of that. So 12,000 of those 19,000 calls. So whatever that percentage is going to be would be appropriate for chat.
All right, thank you.
Okay, very good. So it looks like we're going to, any other questions for the chief?
I was just going to, so the 12,000 calls are the ones that chat could go to, but the
7,000.
Okay.
So 7,000 would
7,000.
need to be either officer response or a co-response with a mental health clinician.
Okay.
That could be potentially appropriate for the MCERT.
Thank you, Chief.
Perfect. So it looks like we're going to, for the next 5 years through our CCP, pick up where the one-time funding ended.
Yeah, this is an exciting part to give some stability to some of that funding for at least several more years, because we currently have this funding. Some of the HUD funding ends at the end of this year, and the ARPA money is only for a few years. So it does extend this program several more years.
Very good. Okay, thanks, Brendan. Thank you. And I want to thank the mayor here, Mayor Suzawala. We thank you for being here, too, and being a part of this. Okay, Mark, keep going.
Last one.
Okay.
I'm going to invite the county's public defender, Jennifer Jennison, to review the request from the public defender's office.
Jennifer, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So the public defender's request is to add 3 full-time client support specialists to our existing 2 full-time client support specialists. Public defenders, as you know, are assigned to represent those who are at the highest risk in our community. The trust we build with our clients, our access to them, and our zealous advocacy gives us the power to create restorative, tailored solutions to provide access to community resources to address the underlying issues that gave rise to their legal system involvement, secure better outcomes both inside and outside of the courtroom, and increase public safety. This will allow us to expand the number of clients that our support specialists can assist by more than double. It will allow us to recruit advocates with diverse backgrounds and identities. It will allow us to develop an intake process that screens for social service needs, including housing services, employment services, public benefits, substance use disorder treatment, and mental health treatment. It will allow us to enhance responsibilities for our specialists and increase the scope of services to achieve our desired client outcomes. The addition of these staff members will allow mitigation for cases and allow us to design a system to facilitate issue spotting at different points in our practice, arraignment versus pretrial versus reentry. This will also allow us to collect data about our clients' needs and experiences and outcomes so that we can improve our services. We will continue to further develop community partnerships. To date, we have completed 236 cases with client support specialists. 603 services and resources were connected to our clients. We currently have 197 open cases, and in those open cases, 397 services that are ongoing for our clients.
Oh, sorry. That was it.
That's it.
Okay. I'm sorry. Thanks, Jennifer. Okay. Very good. Any questions for Jennifer? Anybody?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, depicted on your screen is the 22-23 CCP budget. This includes $38.49 million in expenditures supported by $29.63 million in revenue and the use of $8.85 million in fund balance. This leaves a year-end projected fund balance of $11.46 million. On the screen in front of you is a very conservative 5-year estimated spending plan. If adopted, this plan would fund over 132 county positions and 15 City of Modesto positions. Also, on the 5-year plan is a line item pertaining to innovation funding. Statute requires that 10% of growth funding must be directed to fund local needs as determined by the Board of Supervisors. Lastly, our list of recommendations, which is on the screen in front of you by the CCP Executive Committee. Number 1, we would ask that you approve the 22-23 Community Corrections Partnership Plan for 2011 Public Safety Realignment. Number 2, authorize the Chief Probation Officer or the Sheriff to sign all CCP documents related to 2011 Public Safety Realignment, including operational contracts and amendments. And lastly, we would ask that you amend the salary and position allocation resolution to add 12 newly allocated deputy sheriff positions effective the first full pay period after July 1st of 2022. And with that, I am open for questions from this board.
Very good. Thank you, Mark. Great presentation. Thank you, everybody, for your presentations. Okay, any questions?
How about a comment?
Comments? Go for it.
It's a question comment. So I think the model of mental health, either embedded or separate, the chief talked about chat. I know that we're at the Sheriff's Department and Modesto PD, they've been doing this. This is the model that if we can divert even a percentage, if it's 5 to 10% of the calls through mental health clinician, it allows the police officers and deputies to be doing their job, which is not being a mental health clinician. So I love the model. My general concern is our first dollar is always spent in Modesto because it's the biggest population, but this program needs to be expanded, especially to Ceres and Turlock, and at least have the option, because what happens, I think, in Patterson, through the sheriff's office, since it's a contract city, I think we'll have potentially the west side will have some coverage, and then with Riverbank being a contract city, I think through what we're trying to do. But it really has to, for sure, to the south county down to Turlock, this has to be an option. And I know Modesto took the leap of faith early on to do this, putting some of their ARPA funds, and so that makes a lot of sense. We need to encourage the other PDs, and again, that Chief, you represent all of the police departments, so I'm going to count on you, and I'm going to count on the sheriff to talk with them on future growth funds, because this is going to be important, not just for the people in this room, but for the other police departments. It's going to be very important, and it'll be a priority for me to make sure that Turlock gets in this.
Perfect. I agree with you 100%. That's exactly. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we'll go out to the public. Ramon, come on back up. This is why we wanted you to stay.
Yeah, I want to make clear, so we need to start, since we have all those programs in place, we need to start promoting, as a public outreach, so to let the public know that we can all learn this from Trevor Steer incident to Dylan Harvey's incident right now. We can inform the public that there are alternatives to having to call the police, because I've been telling everyone that the cops are not mental health workers. We all agree on that. So if we start promoting chat or the mental health crisis program to the public, they will have an alternative in case if their loved ones or someone they see in public having like a mental health crisis, they can call that number instead of having the police respond. So we need to start making this a public outreach so the public will know that there are alternatives to calling the police on these mental health issues. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Ramon. Thanks for hanging around.
Can I respond?
Go ahead,
and Ramon, it makes sense, but you're still in a crisis situation. I don't want people going around the 911 system, because you never know what you have, and they probably, I don't know that Modesto has ever sent out chat as a starting point, right? You usually have to make sure that it's cleared, the situation is cleared. So, but we need to advertise that there's something available out there. But I still would encourage people in a situation not trying to go around that situation. Again, I'm not a law enforcement expert, but it just makes sense.
Makes sense. Perfect. Thank you. Any other public comment before we bring it back to the board? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. If no other, Buck, go ahead.
I make a motion to approve.
Yeah, if I could, before we go through that, just a couple comments, if I could.
No,
Okay,
absolutely. Go ahead.
If nobody else. Okay, so, looking at this, and it's great that, Mark, you kind of started off with kind of the history of where this is. I know when AB 109 first happened back in 2011, that it was like the sky was falling, right? And I know we've kind of gone through this a few times if you guys come and do your presentation, but I'd just like to remind us of what we thought. When that was happening, we thought it was the end of the world. They were going to send all these state prisoners back to the county of origin, and we weren't ready. We weren't ready to handle this. We didn't know what we were going to do, and I remember fighting this tooth and nail when it first started. But in the end, we kept saying, I think we can do it better. I think we probably can do it better. We can. I mean, these guys and gals, these individuals were going to state prison and learning how to become better bad guys, we always said. And so we bring them back here now, and to look at what we're doing now with our CCP money, and that was the fear, they're going to, another state mandate, they're going to throw all these people back here, and we have no money to do that. We have money. The state has held up its end of their bargain in this one, and we have gotten funding for this. And as I go through this request, I'm so proud of you guys. The stuff we're asking for, the things we're looking at here. I mean, our CARE 2.0, I mean, unbelievable what's going on there. I know they've been down to Turlock. A few of us guys have been out there with them and seeing what the CARE 2.0 is doing, what CARE's doing with these individuals. I mean, it's amazing work, and it's money well spent, what we're doing. It's just, it's the kind of stuff that, CCP was supposed to happen. In the probation department, I see you're looking, I know how shorthanded you are, and you're hiring people to help you hire people, and $200,000 to try to, but I get it, we're doing the same thing in my accounting firm right now. We've never had a headhunter before. We're hiring a headhunter. We're desperate. We got to get people, and we need. And I know throughout the county, we're all desperate. All industries are desperate for employees right now. So, you first look at that $200,000 to try to. But then I get it. I know what you're going through. Ruben with the mental health stuff, BHRS. My notes I put next to your program coordinator to do something like Homeboy Industry. I put yay. I know we've been talking about doing this for a long time. We actually when we brought Father Boyle here from Homeboy Industries to talk, and I know we need a community-based rehabilitation program that's rooted in our community, and so that's something that I hope, as a result of this funding, we'll figure out what that's going to be and what it's going to look like, and we can get that going, because we really, I don't think we have any nonprofits that treat and work with incarcerated males as they come back out of prison. I don't think we have something specifically. I would love to see a Homeboy Industries situation set up here. It would do some good stuff for us. So good things there. Jennifer, what you're doing in where'd Jennifer? There we go. What you're doing there in the public defender's office is just good stuff. We so appreciate, and I know you've been working with Birgit in the DA's office. You guys have been working together, and we had Lorenzo Brown right back in the State of the County address. Was just a perfect example of what the funding and what this money is going towards, and how we really are helping these individuals, changing their lives, making a difference in everything they're doing. So that's more good stuff. Frank, everything you're doing, at the sheriff's office, and Jeff, so appreciate what you guys are doing. The expansions and all these things you're doing is specifically for just what it was meant to be, and what the CCP money was meant to be, as these people came back, for us to better help rehabilitate and reduce the recidivism. So, all this stuff, it looks like giant dollars that we're spending, but I think it's going to pay, and it's big money, but it is going to pay great dividends for us here, and it's exactly what we hoped this would turn into, right, when we first were in such fear of what was happening with AB 109. And then this is where this money is supposed to go, and this is what it's intended to do to help rehabilitate these people, reduce recidivism, and make this a better community. So I'm just very proud of all of you and everything that you guys are doing, to take what we thought was was really lemons and turned it into lemonade. And it is, I think it's working out. And Trish, thank you for the data you brought us here. That helps us show that it is, we are making progress here. So thank you guys very much. Okay.
I'll make a second to the motion on the floor if there's no more comments.
Okay, I think Jody was.
Yeah, and I do need to just make a slight clarification. In staff recommendation number 3, it reads, amend the salary position allocation resolution to add 12 newly allocated deputy sheriff positions. We should have stated deputy sheriff custodial positions there. It is correct in the staffing report and in the staffing section of the report, but that recommendation left off the word custodial. Just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Jody. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Buck, do you want to say something else?
No, absolutely.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you guys very much. Good work.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to item 7.2, approval to introduce and waive the first reading of an ordinance establishing a tax on cannabis business activities within the unincorporated area of the county.
As Damien comes up and gets ready. All right, here we go. As Damien comes up and gets ready, I think it's appropriate for me to give some little background on what we're doing and why. In 2016, Vito, Keith Boggs, and I were working on trying to get a county-wide tax that would cover the entire county. We worked very hard trying to do that. In 2017, we decided we would be better off coming forward with our own. And as we were preparing to do that, the city of Modesto got out ahead of us and got their tax on the ballot. And at the same time, we had a tax for our library. And so at that time, we decided to pull it off, and we went with our development agreements. The development agreements we set to expire 5 years after they were approved, and several of our development agreements are going to expire here pretty soon. And that, along with some other issues like leveling the playing field for our industry, providing additional flexibility, and some new ideas about also taxing the illegal market, we decided to bring this measure before you for consideration. And with that, I'll turn it over to Damien.
Thanks, Tom. Good morning, Chairman Withrow, board members, CEO Hayes, County Council Bowes, Damien Martinez, Senior Management Consultant with the Chief Executive Office. You'll notice that usually in this chair is Tara Chumley, and so I started in this particular capacity in mid-May, so I want to thank Tara for all of her guidance and wisdom with the cannabis program. I also just want to quickly recognize our team, County Council Bowes, from the County Council's office, Danya Nunes and Will Shirley, who are part of our cannabis team, and recognize that we have several of our cannabis operators in the audience. So I'll be presenting to you today on the proposed commercial cannabis business tax initiative. I want to start briefly with some background, which you're all familiar with, but I think it's important to contextualize our discussion. On December 5th, 2017, this board adopted an allowance strategy of 61 licenses with a maximum of 7 retail businesses and developed the following. Commercial Cannabis Activities Ordinance, Chapter 6.78, which included zoning, there was fees, and an application process. Also developed was an enforcement strategy to remove illegal cannabis activities. It was funded by the legal permitted businesses. Also, February 12, 2019, this board held initial public hearings and began approving development agreements for commercial cannabis businesses. To date, this board has approved 26 development agreements, 17 active facilities, 2 facilities in development, which are not yet operational, and 7 development agreements canceled and terminated. I do want to also mention, similar to what County Council Bowes had mentioned, we have 15 development agreements that will come up for or expire in 2024 and 4 in 2025. The current fee structure is based around development agreements. One of the primary components of the development agreement is the payment of a community benefit rate, which is based on a licensed activity, and this funds cannabis enforcement and program administration. Also, the community benefit contribution is part of the development agreements, which was eliminated May 3rd, 2022, but it was designed to contribute to community programs, local charities, and public projects. Cannabis operators are continuing and will continue with a menu of options to support the community. We're currently working with our Stanislaus Community Foundation on the Community Benefit Contribution Grant Program. The proposed new fee structure would be via a tax measure, which is before you this morning. The tax measure, if approved, would replace the current community benefit rate fees as outlined in the development agreements, simplify the fee structure for operators, and assess a tax that is equitable and uniform across all operators. The ordinance, the county retained the services of a consultant, HDL Companies, who provided a draft cannabis tax ordinance after conducting an analysis of nearby jurisdictions and worked closely with our county counsel's office. In this ordinance, it establishes maximum rates for each cannabis business type. It also allows the board to set the rates by resolution and allows the county to tax cannabis cultivation based on either gross receipts or square footage used. So this slide here may be a little bit difficult to read, but I'm going to do my best to highlight it for all of you. So you'll see on the first row, which is our county's current rates. So cultivation, the fee structure is based off of square footage, determined by mixed light and indoor. And you'll see at the very top row is the number of activities that we have. So 10 operators for cultivation, 4 nursery, 7 retail permits, 2 for manufacturing, 6 for distribution, and we do not have any testing facilities at this moment in our county. That green row identifies what the current rates are for operators. $1 for square foot for nursery, 8% of gross receipts, 8% for gross receipts of manufacturing, and 3% for distribution. When we consulted with HDL, they did their assessment of nearby jurisdictions and have worked on preparing tax measures and initiatives throughout the state. What they had recommended is what we are proposing to stay in line with. And so the second row, which is in blue, which is the recommended maximum in the ordinance, you will see, with the exception of 2 particular categories, but we had stayed within the range that HDL had recommended. And I'm going to turn over to Tom in a minute to explain the cultivation column just in a second. So you will see that we have, now this recommended maximum ordinance is a ceiling limit. And so the recommendation is for the max, which is a ceiling. So it can go from 0 up to the maximum. Nursery at $2 a square foot, retail at 10% gross receipts, manufacturing at 4%, and distribution at 3%. And you'll see that the 10% maximum is in line with the city of Modesto. So if you look at the last 2 rows, we'd want it to be in line with the city of Modesto. The city of Modesto sets their maximum rates, so the rates they cannot exceed, but they do have flexibility from 0 all the way up to 10%. You'll see that the second to the last row was what the current rates are for the city of Modesto. If you then take a look at the third row, sorry for all the different rows and colors, the recommended initial rate to be set at is in line with the city of Modesto. And the recommendation for that particular rate being in line with the city of Modesto is to ensure that there would be equity and uniformity across the activities, so someone wouldn't go to the city of Modesto for a lower rate or vice versa. So we have our current rates for the first row, the recommended maximum in the ordinance, which is before you today, the recommended initial rate, we have the recommended maximum for HDL, and the current rates for Modesto. And Tom, I wonder if you can just explain the cultivation, because there is a difference in the recommended maximum.
Yes, you'll see in the ordinance that with respect to cultivation, we allow two different methods of taxing cultivation. That's to provide flexibility to the board and for the industry. We have in the ordinance a maximum rate of 3% of gross receipts for cultivation, or a stated dollar amount, and there's different dollar amounts there for different types of cultivation, and that's based on square footage. And so that having those two different methods of taxing provides additional flexibility for the board.
Okay, now I'd like to move forward with a chart here on historically what our revenue has been and what the projected revenue will be on the proposed tax initiative. So in 2019, there was a partial year. Different operators were in different stages of attaining their permit and operation, and so that isn't a full year of revenue. But you'll see there, we wanted to highlight this for you for 2019. For complete calendar years, you'll see 2020 and 2021, 3.7 million in 2020, and almost 3.8 million in 2021. And you'll see in the parentheses below it, which is the difference, in this case, the increase from one year to the next. Now, we didn't include for 2022, we do have most of first quarter one 2022 payment. However, to make any projections at this point, I think would be a bit premature. We don't know necessarily the gross receipts, nor do the operators their gross receipts. And so we didn't want to project for 2022. Now, a projection based off of the analysis by HDL for revenue for this particular tax initiative would be approximately $3.7 million for this tax. Do want to acknowledge that you'll see in the footnote here about the cost of what the election would be, and then I want to turn over to Tom just briefly so he can talk about what the actual tax initiative would, with that revenue, would fund, particularly as it relates to enforcement. If you want to talk a little bit about what the enforcement as it relates to the tax initiative.
Yeah, you took me by surprise there. So the ordinance allows for enforcement of the tax by allowing for greater auditing powers than what we have in our development agreement. Also allows for collection that is stronger mechanisms than what we have in our development agreements. And I think that's what you were wanting me to.
Yep, thank you. Now, this is the proposed ballot question that before you, there's a, what I'm told, 75-word limit, and I'll go ahead and read the ballot question proposed. Shall an ordinance imposing a tax on cannabis businesses only in the unincorporated area based on gross receipts at a maximum 10% on retailers, 3% on distributors, 2% for testing laboratories, 3% on cultivators, or $2 to $10 per square foot, adjustable for inflation, and 4% for all other businesses, generating an estimated $3.7 million annually for unrestricted general revenue purposes, including illegal cannabis enforcement, drug treatment, education, and prevention until repealed by the voters, be adopted. And so, Tom, if you would be willing to explain about how the tax affects the unincorporated area as it's outlined in this ballot question.
Yes, the tax will be voted on by everyone in the county, by all the voters, because the revenue generated from this proposed tax will benefit everyone in the county. However, the tax will only be imposed on those businesses in the unincorporated area.
Thank you. And I want to give you a visual depiction of a timeline of where we're at with this proposed tax measure. On June 16th, HDL, our consultant, facilitated a meeting with our industry stakeholders. We had a small number of industry stakeholders. That meeting was designed to be able to have a discussion with our cannabis operators who asked questions, conveyed their concerns, and we had a discussion about that proposed tax measure. We're here today to consider for this board placing the cannabis tax measure on the ballot. We'll be back to you if this moves forward with to approve placing the cannabis tax measure on the ballot and adopt the ordinance on July 26th. The deadline to submit the ballot measure is August 15th. The general election will be on November the 8th, and the tax rate effective date will be January 1 of 2023. And I will end with staff recommendations. Number 1, to introduce and waive the first reading of an ordinance adding Chapter 4.75 to the Stanislaus County Code that will establish, upon approval of a majority of the electors voting at the election, a tax on specified cannabis business activities. And number 2, consider a proposed resolution which will be brought back to the board for adoption at the next board meeting on July 26, 2022, calling an election for the voters of the county to consider an adoption of the ordinance imposing a tax on specified commercial cannabis business activities only in the unincorporated area and consolidating that election with the general election to be held on November 8, 2022. So with that, I will end our presentation, and if you have any questions, staff are available. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, David. Jody wants to...
Just one quick clarification. This is a confusing aspect of the recommendations that are before you today. Today's recommendations, as I understand it, only require a majority vote of the Board of Supervisors. However, when this matter, if today's recommendations were approved by a majority vote, when it comes back on the 28th, the recommendations before you that day will technically require a 4/5 majority of the board. Is
That's
that correct?
That is
Okay.
correct.
We just wanted to call that out. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Jody. Okay, any questions for...
Could I get a clarification? During our briefings, we heard about being able to tax illegal grows, present them with a bill, and we don't have that power now. Can you explain how that works?
Yes, currently we have in place development agreements, which are essentially land use agreements that allow us to extract a fee from the operators for conducting their cannabis business. We are unable to extract a fee from illegal grows, as is proposed in this tax. What this tax does is proposes a tax not only on the legal industry, but also on everyone conducting a cannabis business, whether it's permitted or not. And that allows us to have additional tools in our belt to fight the black market as well. We just don't have development agreements with the illegal market right now, and so we can't do that.
Okay, thank you.
So we have the ability, though, to, when the sheriff goes out and busts it and they have 1,000 plants, we can present them with the bill.
Yes.
For past tax, and if not, can we lien the property? Do we have the ability to lien the property?
If this tax is passed, yes. We will be able to recover on that.
Okay, Manny?
Same type of question on that. So 3% or $2 to $10 if there's an illegal grow that we catch, that would be the same rate they would be taxed at?
Depending on how you set the tax or what you set the tax at, that is what the illegal grows would be charged. So if you initially set the tax, as staff has proposed, at 3% of gross receipts, then we'd have to do some work and determine what their gross receipts were. If, however, you set it as a option, 3% of gross receipts or $10 per square foot, whichever is greater, then we would be able to impose that relatively easily.
So right now, we would just default to what we're doing with legal operators. We would just incorporate that and put it to the illegal operators, assuming that they're going to give us their gross receipts after they're busted by the sheriff.
Good luck with that.
I'm struggling to.
So let me play it out as a scenario.
Yeah.
Say this isn't self-incrimination, but say I'm an illegal grower.
Yes.
You catch my bust and there's 1,000 grows. How are you going to extrapolate that fee from me to know how much I owe you and what you're going to tax me on?
We will do a lot of work to try to figure that out.
It seems like it's a lot of work and a lot of honesty that needs to be
Yes.
conveyed by both sides, right? Or especially on my side, telling you how much I was growing, what I could have sold it for.
You will leave evidence behind, though. Go ahead.
If I could maybe help, the way I understood your prior answer was we would literally look at the square footage of growth.
Yes.
And based on how we set up the actual tax ordinance here in this community, if this were to pass, then we could set up it based on square foot. And if you did bust an illegal grow, you could simply measure the square foot and then apply that rate.
Exactly, yes.
Would it be easier to just have a penalty if you're caught doing an illegal grow? We do a penalty that the board comes up with an amount rather than having to have the conversation of how much the value is and what you are going to be selling it for, rather just having a penalty. Because the reason I'm getting to that is, I know staff's put a lot of hard work in this tax measure, but that's one of the main positives that I feel that this should be, should be brought to the voters. But if there's another way around it that's more manageable, such as a penalty, where we're not relying on the person that's doing the illegal grow and extrapolating money for them, if that's a possibility.
What we have done is what we are able to do. In other words, the penalties that we are able to impose on illegal grows, we have done that. No further penalties are available. This tax on illegal grows is something that we can't do outside of this. We can't impose an additional penalty on illegal grows that we haven't already done. For example, we have imposed, I believe it's $100 per plant per day. We've done that already, and that requires not only catching them in the act, but establishing facts and going through a lot of due process in order to impose that fine. But imposing the tax, as is provided in this ordinance, that's not something we can do outside of the taxing arena. It's two different powers. Here we are utilizing our taxing power. In what you are suggesting is our health and safety powers. So these are two different powers that we are proposing to utilize.
But we do have currently $100 per plant per day for illegal grows that we catch.
Yes.
That we are.
Danya, do you know that? How much have we collected?
I don't know the money amount.
Come forward. Yeah.
Because I know we've been able to assess it and lien, right? And then what we can't collect, don't we lien
Yeah.
against the property?
What have we done so far?
So I'm not comfortable representing an exact dollar amount. However, I can say that I've been working with code enforcement, and they have set up a process in which we have been targeting all of these illegal grows. And so far, we are up to 50 properties, and all 50 properties have either paid the fines or have voluntarily abated their marijuana plants. And we are ramping up and having more and more, we refer to them as cases, as much as we can. So that is a relatively newer program, but it has been successful thus far.
Okay, and we end up leaning the properties if we have to.
Yes, and we already have one property going through receivership, and there is several other larger scale properties that I'm working with the sheriff's department and trying to see if maybe even the state will get involved.
Okay.
Mr. Bose, could you just speak to the hypotheticals of the process if this does not pass today, or if it does, and if it is rejected or accepted by the voters moving forward?
Well, currently we have in place development agreements. Some of those development agreements are going to expire, and that will require those development agreements going back to the Planning Commission, being presented to the Planning Commission, then being presented back to the Board of Supervisors for approval. And we have currently in place how many development agreements?
We have 19.
19. And so over the next 2 years, am I right, 2 of those will expire or more?
So we have 2 that were at consent today for an amendment. We have 2 that are, we're negotiating. But in total, even those that are amended, they still have the same expiration date. So there are 15 that will expire in 2024 and 4 that will expire in 2025. And those will include the amended agreements, because even though those were amended, they have to maintain their same expiration date.
Yes.
Got it. So regardless, this will be coming back to the board whether the voters accept or reject this, correct? I mean,
help me understand what you mean by this.
well, it's some sort of modifications to the rates. We will have a say eventually whether it's accepted or rejected in November. Our guess, where are we left with?
What we're left with is, you know, the development agreements will expire, but coming forward, the only thing that we will need to consider is the actual land use.
Okay.
If the tax passes, if it's put on the ballot by the board and the voters accept it and approve it, then the fee issue goes away from the development agreements, and all we have to deal with is the land use issues on the development agreements. And yeah.
Okay. And then can you also speak to just some of the mandatory fees, such as like a mandatory retail fee, and kind of what that goes into the businesses, and what, I guess, the minimum requirements for the businesses, and giving us over those type of fees?
So if you look at the top row, that's our current rates, but each business, because of the individualized nature of the development agreement, it's either 8% of gross receipts or their flat rate, whichever is higher. And so each one of the businesses have a different flat rate that's based off of our methodology. And so each one of those is different, and the constant piece is the 8%.
Mm-hmm. So essentially you have one business paying more, one business potentially paying less, and what this would potentially do is give unification to the process.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, could I just jump in and add
Yeah,
a little
of
bit of
course.
clarification? Because this has been a subject of many questions in prior conversations as well. We based those flat rate development agreements based off of the revenue projections from the individual operator that was seeking the permit. So we looked at their own revenue projections to determine what that rate would be. And then, of course, it's come to our attention that some of them have been unable to achieve or come close to some of their revenue projections. And in those cases, we've entered conversation on potential amendments, and we actually have some of that before you pending later today. So I just wanted to clarify that it wasn't necessarily a staff process where we tried to project on our own what the fiscal impacts would be by operator. We really relied on their individual revenue projections, but we respect and understand the fact that that's not going to hold true in all cases.
Sure. And in the intermediate period from now until November, until the voters decide, is there any sort of relief for our businesses that might be, struggling or potentially even closing?
Well, we've done three things at this point. And so in May, with the elimination of the community benefit contribution, we went and recalculated and reassessed the fees. So if there are any overpayment related to the community benefit contribution program, that was applied. The other is that I've met with, I think, almost all the operators and their concerns and questions about the fees that they are paying. And we've come to an agreement on the ones that I've met with about waiving the penalties and interest. The third option is with the amendments, and those amendments with People's Remedy, Jaden's Journey, we have NRC and negotiation, as well as Medallion Wellness, 4 of them. That when those amendments are approved, that we will recalculate and readjust back retroactive back to January 1st of 2022. So those are 3 main things that we've done up to this point to provide some reprieve and financial assistance to the operators.
Thank you, David. I am in support of this measure in general. I would probably even consider taking it one step further and providing some sort of relief and lowering the mandatory retail fees. I would probably ask my colleagues for a motion after public comment, but that is kind of the direction I would like to see it go when it is brought back to the board for consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chance. Manny.
Seeing the timeline on June 16th, you met with some of the stakeholders, and I see some of the stakeholders in the room. What was the sentiment there? Were they very supportive of this tax? Were they like, no, even though it's uniformity, or was the sentiment like, as long as we keep working together on renegotiating DAs, they're not as excited about it? What was kind of the sentiment? And I'm sure we'll hear from some of them, but on a staff perspective, what did you kind of sense the sentiment in the room was for that?
Yes, I'll be as transparent as possible that the operators had a great deal of concern related to the tax measure. And so those who were in attendance, but also those who weren't in attendance, had some major concerns and questions. I'd probably say more err on the side of more concerns about the tax initiative, the proposed tax initiative.
And again, I don't want to get it repeated. I'm sure some will convey some of those concerns, but just some of the highlights, some concerns that they had.
Of those operators that I had discussions about, they had several different concerns, but if I were to encapsulate sort of the major concern and consolidate all of their concerns, I would say that what has been conveyed to me, the perception of the operators who I've had discussions with, is that the max rate that's proposed to be set at 10%, and then the recommended initial rate at 8%, would be the actual rates that would not necessarily be lowered at any point in time in the future. And so what has been conveyed to me, their concern is that those rates are similar to the rates that they are paying now, and so the ordinance would not necessarily benefit them as much as they would like.
So they're thinking we're either going with the HDL recommendation of 8% or the cap rate of 10%, and it'd be somewhere in between.
Yeah, that's what they've conveyed to me.
Okay, thanks, Manny. Can I just real quick to project it historic this revenue, this slide here. So as I look at this, so what we're projecting here is that it'll be $115,000 reduction to our revenue. $115,000 savings is all we're talking about when all is said and done for the 29 permits.
So that's based off of the revenue from 2021, and so it would be a decrease from the revenue that we have in 2021. We're not exactly sure for 2022 at this point.
Okay, so
I'm sorry, if I could just jump. I'm sorry, I apologize. I keep wanting to jump in on some of this. I asked staff to basically just apply the new rate structure to whatever our most recent complete year of revenues were. So it's a very imperfect exercise to come up with what that projection was. But I thought it was important to at least recognize in some areas we're actually reducing the rate in certain areas. So I wanted to at least capture what might that look like, and what would that potential exposure be. I think ultimately the revenue that you see out there projected for 2023 is going to be entirely based on the health of the industry itself. And if the industry's not healthy, that number is going to be lower. And if the industry's healthier, it'll most likely be more.
Okay. And so as I just look at the cost of this election, if we're to do this between 300 and 500, it's close to 600,000 for this, to put this on the ballot and to do this for the sake of a reduction of 115,000 or a savings for the industry of 115,000. I know it's an estimate and ballpark and probably not close, but anyway, just is a tougher number there. Okay. Any other questions from the board before we open it up to the public? Okay. We'll look for any public comment. I don't have any speaker cards here on this item, but anybody from the public like to come up and talk? Come on up. Still good morning. How are you?
Morning, Frank Edwards.
Frank.
Spoke to you folks a couple weeks ago with regards to this. Basically, we all need immediate relief, period. All this proposed stuff isn't really giving anybody any relief. This industry faces similar challenges as any other business. Workman's comp, insurance, and beyond. We don't even get to write off stuff that any other business would get to write off. So basically what they're proposing is just changing a verbiage to where, we're basically going to be charged the same rate. So I speak on the industry. We're all pioneers in this county of this industry. It's an embryonic baby industry, and it's all on our dollars and our backs. And most of us in the industry have been bled dry. So I'm raising the white flag, surrender, stop the bleeding, help immediately. Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, thanks, Frank. Anybody else? I think we got one coming up here in the back, Stephen, and then you next here.
Good afternoon, Mark Ponticelli, People's Remedy. I wanted to say thank you to Tara. She's been amazing. Damien's doing a really good job stepping up, so thank you guys. The staff has been really, really good. You guys have been helping out a lot. The reason why we went into this in the beginning was to eradicate the black market. If the taxes stay high, we can't compete with the black market. They don't have no taxes. And Modesto is the epicenter of cannabis in California. It's the cheapest cost of labor, cheapest housing, cheapest electricity. So in order for us to help combat the black market, you guys could just help us out on the taxes, drop the minimum. Like they said, it's bleeding us dry. I overpaid $100,000 last quarter. If any of you guys got a bill from the county that said you got to pay $100,000 over than what you collected at the registers, that would be pretty tough, right? So just please help us out as much as possible, and thank you again to the staff.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Go ahead, Mark.
So, good afternoon, Mark. You mentioned People's Remedy, and that was one of the entities that did the renegotiation of the development agreement. So just a quick question on that. How involved was that process? I know staff was great, so I'm not even going to ask about that, and you've already alluded to how easy they are to work with. But how cumbersome was it, and how much of a savings? Because I remember looking at the briefing sheet of your renegotiation and how much it brought down.
You guys are going off an average of the last 2 years, and just even 2 years ago, a pound of cannabis was going for way more than it is now. So even though you guys have brought that down, it's still, we're still bleeding. I'm still paying out of pocket. I'm going to be paying out of pocket unless we go to a flat tax.
But if I recall, your DA was, I want to say, somewhere in the 500,000 range.
Yeah.
And then now it was like 261,000.
Yeah, so
not that I memorized this kind of stuff, but I kind of
right. But last quarter we collected 62,000 at the registers. I want to say off the top of my head. So it's helped a lot significantly, but not if the market still continues to crash. We're in July. This should be peaking. We should be doing amazing numbers right now, and we're not. I don't think anybody is right now. It keeps crashing. So if we could just do a flat tax, just basic tax, that would help out a lot and get rid of the minimums. Any more questions?
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Mark. Anybody else? Stephen, come on up.
Okay, for the record, my name is Stephen Morrow. A concern I have with this tax is this would now become, if adopted by the board, would become the third major tax measure that would be appearing on the November ballot with the city of Modesto and the Modesto, I think it's the Modesto City Schools, looking for a measure to be passed. Is that creating some concern that the voters are going to look at one tax, two tax, three tax? You know, could that create some resistance from the voters and in essence threaten the passage of all of them? And do you folks have any concern on that? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, anybody? Jason, come on up.
First thing I want to say is thank you for dealing with us. I know we're probably a headache. We've been dealing with this for years, so thank you for all your help. Damien, on another level, you've been really very helpful and trying to help us. We have overpaid a lot. A lot of things you guys don't see is there's 280E we have to pay on our taxes that we don't get to write stuff off being cannabis federally legal. Also, we followed all the COVID protocols at one time. The last couple of years is we had to let people go leave for 10 days and we had to pay them. We had no relief back, we had no funding back, and we had that happen 4 times in our store for 10 employees. So we had to pay them out of pocket, and we didn't say a word about that. We have no relief back like other companies did because we're not federally legal. So that was another problem. And then we're getting taxed on gross, not on net. So even when you said last time you lowered it down, Manny was saying about lowering it down. So we were looking at our numbers. The last couple of years, we've overpaid about almost $260,000 to $300,000 a quarter. We're collecting $50,000 to $60,000, and we're giving you $131,000 a quarter for the last couple of years. So if you look at that number, we've way overpaid. And when Chance was saying to rehabilitate us, and we haven't made a profit in Modesto in 2 years in our store. Just to survive, we had to sell our other store to pay our taxes. In Modesto, there in our Stanislaus County, we can't sell our store, we can't move our store. We have these Walmart-looking stores here in the city that are better locations, better taxes. Why would people want to come see us in Stanislaus County in the outskirts with a worse location, with a higher tax? Then, like he said too, as Mark is saying, you know, he collected $62,000, and it's going to be better that we lower the rate. But we're looking at our numbers; we're still going to be overpaying about 120 grand instead of 250 to 300 grand a year, and that's still a lot for us. The market is going down dramatically. Our numbers literally daily go down. Daily, I see our numbers going down and down. Every day it's like this is the worst Saturday we've ever had, the worst Monday we've ever had. Every week it's going worse and worse and worse. I'm not sure if you guys been feeling that too. Like, I can't believe our numbers are dropping like this. And it's hard to compete when you got the black market, you got the people in better locations with the better taxes, and then you also have the gray market, the people, and I'm sure that a lot of people know, the big guys they're doing stuff legal, and they have the gray market, they have doing stuff illegal too. And we've been strictly by the book. It's like we were getting punished for doing everything right and doing everything correct from the beginning. So I just wanted to put it out there that a lot of things you guys don't see is a 280E. We don't get to write stuff off. We're getting taxed on tax on tax. So we're getting taxed over and over and over and over again. I don't think there's any other business that gets taxed on gross instead of net. And then when you look at that, it's just a huge amount of tax we're overpaying. And when Chance said to help us, save us, I mean, the people that are doing it right are getting punished. The people that did everything wrong are getting rewarded. And I don't think it's fair. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jason. Okay, anybody else?
Hi, Byron Bogard, Highway 33. I wanted to speak from a retail perspective, but at first I do want to say thank you to the staff, the new staff, as well as Tara and the city staff, and getting the program going a number of years ago. As an existing operator, it was great for us to continue to operate while the county figured things out. Chance, I just wanted to say congratulations as a father of 3. The best thing I heard was the days and nights are long, but the weeks and months go by fast, so enjoy it.
Thank you.
I got into the legal side of it, out of the gray market, out of the black market, whatever you want to call it, because of my 3 kids. because I want to look them in the eye and be honest about what it is that their father does. In fact, last night my daughter made a new friend just next door, well, a couple houses down, and the dad comes over and asks me what I do for a living. And so I was able to be honest with him about what it is that I do. But what's been frustrating over the last couple of years, and in my my plan that I put before the county, I mentioned there a number of times that I look at the county as a business partner. You guys are my business partner, whether I want it or not. If I want to operate legally in this county, you're my partner. The unfortunate thing is, I don't feel like I've ever really received that reciprocation back. And I could go on and on about whether it's 280E, whether it's COVID and lack of support. But the thing that's frustrating, really, really frustrating, just because I want to talk about this specific tax, is the county went out and hired HDL, or whatever the name of the company is. And at no point did they ever once reach out to me as an operator. They looked at all this data from around the county, and it's bad, old, historical data. I mean, not from the county, from the state. And what do I mean by that? Just like, I forget whether it's Marcus or somebody else that was talking about, the price per pound has dramatically dropped. The market is crashing, and it's crashing for a number of reasons. But part of that is because the black market, the traditional market, is thriving. And we talked earlier, you guys were talking earlier about this tax being a way to go after illegal grows. And Supervisor, you talked a little bit, or were asking questions about, what does it mean when you do catch one of these illegal grows and the process going around it. Well, we have processes in place right now, and they're not being utilized to go after these people. And people that are operating as a storefront illegally, are you going to go out and try to get their gross receipts and then be honest? And it just doesn't make sense. And like these operators have talked about now, we need relief now. I still dispute in my development agreement and in the previous ordinance, there is a way for us to sell our business, even though the county hasn't been really receptive to me in that process and explaining and understanding. I've reached out to county council as well in trying to get that addressed. But I guess my main point in coming up here and rambling on about this to you guys is I don't speak in favor of this. We need to get together with the actual stakeholders in this county and come up with a viable plan to be successful. That doesn't include hiring some outside company to then come in and tell us what to do. So, thank you.
Thanks, Byron. Okay, anybody else?
My name is Darren Silva. We operate a dispensary on Yosemite. We also have a grow, distribution, and a nursery out in Patterson. You guys are probably familiar with me. A lot of that money up there we do provide, from our grow, our nursery, nothing through distribution, but retail as well. I look at that 3.7 and I could tell you we're probably 25% of that through our grow and our retail. It's a lot of money. A lot of emphasis is put on the retail right now. I don't hear very many people talking about the grow side of it. $48,000 a quarter for the grow side comes out to about $500 a day just to operate. Before we pay any employees, before we pay any tax, before we do anything. That's just $500 a day to operate. Borderline mafia, right? That's how it works in other countries. You want to go sell products out there, on their streets or in their town, you got to go pay. If you don't pay, you get kidnapped, you get killed, and a whole bunch of other things, whatever, who knows. Your family gets killed. This is kind of borderline what's going on here. In order to operate, we got to go pay a fee every day just to operate. That's absurd. You have what's your business accounting firm? How much do you pay public benefit fee? How much do you pay? You don't pay nothing, and I'm sorry to point you out, but I have a landscaping company. I don't pay nothing. I do real estate. I don't pay anything. But here we are, cannabis, we're over here paying at the grow, we're paying at the distro. You guys are collecting at every aspect of it. And if you're vertically integrated, you pay a tax at the grow, you pay a tax at the distribution, you pay a tax at the nursery, then you send it to your store, and then, damn, you got to pay another tax. That's outrageous, you guys. Some of you guys are maybe almond farmers and do other stuff. What are the taxes that are imposed on you guys? I farm almonds too. There's no taxes imposed on that. there's got to be some reality brought forth here into what's really going on and why are we being the funders of all these things, and you guys are collecting $3.7 million and $600,000 to run an election. That's plenty of money, right? A lot of bragging going on about how much money you guys have collected. I've heard throughout, it's just gotten a little, just gotten crazy as an operator just to see this. It was a pilot program too, right? Pilot program to figure out, see how it works. We've never done it in the history. It's cannabis. It's for all of us to figure out together, not just for, the city and the counties just to sit back and just watch us navigate through this, and the whole while taking an abundance of money from us and not really learning from it. You guys got to learn from it and make it work, right? Make us continue to pull the cannabis off the black market, put it into the stores so people over 21 can get it and our youth isn't getting it, and so on and so forth. But I don't feel like you guys are helping us out. As Byron said, you guys are our business partners. 3%, 5%, 8%, and then you got gross. Gross is a big number. What is 3% gross equal to of our net? It's pretty big. You guys are a pretty big partner of ours, if you think about it. That's a lot of money right there. Gross of $1 million, 3%, and I mean, it's just a lot of money. So I want you guys to really consider these taxes, and then seeing 8 to 10%. What is the increase for? I see a lot of increase. I see a 4% decrease, but I also see a lot of increase. Then a $1 reduction on grow per square foot. I mean, we got to do something a little bit more to combat this and help out the cannabis industry. So do what you guys can. Please consider it and treat us like a normal business, a normal agriculture business, a normal retail business, and just normal human beings, and not like outlaws or outcasts anymore that you can't even collect from. So help us out. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thanks, Darren. Anybody else?
I'm Michael O'Leary with Medallion Wellness, and I'd like to start off by saying, please excuse my presence today. I left my farm to come down here. I'm in jeans and a t-shirt. I know I now have a beard since the last time you saw me and long hair. I'm in a midlife crisis. I'd like to start off by saying, Mark, you look really sharp today. You represent us very well, and I thank you. I was curious if I could take this time to talk to my constituents for a second. Why I have them all here, why you can listen. You guys want a level playing field, right? Retail. I'm talking to retail guys over.
Michael, I got to get you to direct your comments to us.
They want a level playing field.
Okay.
So guys, listen, please. And I understand where they're coming from, because I'm losing money rapidly. I mean, this last quarter, $31,000 I had to pay that I didn't collect, which is not as much as Mark, but where does that $31,000 come from? It comes right out of my family's pocket. Workman's comp, they audited me for during COVID. And because of the COVID, what Jason was speaking of, we had to lay people or let them go for 10 to 14 days and pay them. But we also had to have employees ready to work. So I got audited for workman's comp during COVID. They sent me a $78,000 bill, not because I increased employees when I called, because I am cannabis. $78,000 2 years later. That's what we face. So I understand where the frustration is coming from. But I would like to ask you guys, if we want a level playing field, then in retail, we need a solid tax, because the tax will get rid of the mandatory minimums. They will go away. We will never hear that term again. I can't speak on cultivation for Frank or Darren, because I cultivate in different counties. I don't cultivate in Stanislaus County. But in order for us to have an even playing field here,
Michael, you got to speak into that mic.
We need to have this tax. The mandatory minimums need to go away. And the only way that's going to happen, and the only way that you're going to pay the same amount that I'm going to pay, and you're going to pay the same amount that I'm going to pay, and you're going to pay all of my tax, the only way that, Rick, that was a joke. The only way that's going to happen is with this ordinance. My problem with this ordinance is you're going to charge these illegal people, excuse me, I don't mean to get loud, the same amount of money you're going to charge us. So now it becomes an accounting line item in an illegal business. Okay, so we only have to pay the same amount of tax if we get busted that the illegal guys do? Can we triple that? In this, can we say, if you get busted, or quadruple it, make it 5 times. If you get busted, you pay a tax. But you don't pay the same tax that legal people do, you pay 5 times the amount. I understand you can only issue so many fines, but we got to think outside the box here. We need to leave a level playing field, period. We have to have it. And the only way to do that is with a tax initiative. That's the only way. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck doing mandatory minimums from now until this either goes federally legal and the whole landscaping changes, or till the end of eternity if it doesn't. So, and I know I'm probably over my 3 minutes, and I'm sorry you get so excited, and I'm sorry for my presence, but I just needed to address you guys. We need an even playing field. And the only problem I see with this is the illegals paying the same amount of tax we do. Other than that, it evens the playing field for retail. Once again, I can't speak on cultivation. Darren, I don't cultivate here. I cultivate, in Humboldt and Trinity and Mendocino and Calaveras. Those are 4 different battles. But I do agree with Darren. It's being taxed all the way down the line. And at some point, when you're a vertically integrated operator, we should look at giving him a break. He shouldn't pay all the way down the line in the county. Just my own personal opinion. But guys, once again, we have to have an even playing field. We really do. And the only way we can do this is if we get the same tax as the city of Modesto and we get rid of the mandatory minimums.
Okay,
Thank
Michael,
you.
thank you.
Can Tom answer that question of, can you tax at a higher rate? Or Danya?
Yeah. Actually, thank you, Supervisor. I did want to clarify. I wanted to go back to Supervisor Graywall's comments and questions. So in regards to the black market specifically, a percentage of this tax, as it was in the ballot question, would go towards further cannabis unlawful enforcement. Now, our Sheriff's Department has done a really great job. There are just tons and tons and tons of these black market grows, unfortunately. But they have been as much work as they do. It's barely a dent, honestly. Just one goes down and 2 more pop up, unfortunately. However, with this process that we have currently in place, there are fines, yes. This is a full process, though. There are notifications that need to be done for the due process. And those health and safety fines can only go so high as our ordinance states. And that does take some time, and that is a process. Now, with this tax, though, however, the idea of the gross receipts or square footage, I just want to clarify that really quickly again. It's not one that this board needs to decide at this moment, or decide. The idea is that it would stay in the ordinance as a 3% or, and then I think it's like $2 to $10 or something like that, in the ordinance, and the board has full discretion to go back and forth through that. And therefore, let's say that the board chooses to do 3% for these legal grows, and you are permitted and have that discretion within this ordinance to say that you want to have it done by $10 a square foot for the illegal grows. Now, how can that be measured? It can easily be measured right now. Code enforcement is already having to go out with the Sheriff's Department. And I think that's an important factor. When these fees of our current process are sent to these illegal grows, that is coming from code enforcement, and that is drastically different than a massive tax bill from the Treasurer Controller's office, Treasurer Collector's office. So that is already one big thing. And I do want to, it wouldn't be, I know it sounds like it, but it would not be the exact same amount as for a legal grow. The Sheriff's Department is inundated with these complaints. Some of these complaints on their list of things to do are 2 to 3 years old, and they are chipping away at them, and they're still there. For example, if we were to send them this tax bill, it is back taxed, and that has penalties and fees that are assessed per quarter. So that does have an adding factor to it. So they will incur penalties and fees. They will incur back taxes, and that tax bill gets to a lien much quicker and it has more weight to it than these fines. So that is one thing I wanted to clarify, that there is a difference.
Okay, thanks, Tanya. Vito, that answer it?
Yes, I did.
Perfect.
Thank you, Danya.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, anybody else from the public before we bring it back to the board? Okay, we're going to bring it back to the board for comments. I'm going to kind of jump in here, start off if I could. So this is something I continue to have buyer's remorse on. I guess, I know our original process was that the thought was we were going to have this certain amount of legal permits, and then it would help us shut down all of the illegal operations with the money that we'd be able to generate from that. And so that was what we thought. And I guess, we've a ton of resources we're expending, still trying to shut down. The sheriff's, I know, doing a great job, doing everything they can to shut down those, it's tough to do, and it's tough to get there, but we're working hard at it, I get it, and the revenue from this is helping us do that. And I very much appreciate staff, everything you guys have done. This was a lot of work to put this together, and the efforts and the meetings and everything. I wholeheartedly appreciate and support everything you guys are doing to try to make this thing work. And for me, as I look at this, the reduction in costs, the savings for the growers who are obviously growers, retailers, everything that's, involved, it doesn't seem enough to justify what we're going to put on the ballot here. And then for me, that I'm going to go back to the ballot thing, which is probably weighs heavy on me more than anything, is what's coming up here in November. City of Modesto's got their hands full. And I'm never a big tax guy, not something that I support usually for government, more taxes. And City of Modesto's here looking for a tax, a 1% tax that they're going to need, but I know that they are in desperate need of it. And if it doesn't happen, that they're going to be in some real trouble financially for the City of Modesto for just their basic services, police, fire, things. And so I don't want to do anything to jeopardize that for the city. I mean, that's just how I look at it. I wish there was some way we could do this without having to put it on the ballot. I know we've got these amendments that we do. We've done these. We've got some here that today that we through consent that are going to come back to us. Amendments to the development agreements. Well, I wish we could do it that way. I wish we could go back. I know we've got 29 of these, right? 29 permits out there that we'd have to go back, and we are amending some of them already to try to help them that way rather than have to put this on the ballot. So anyway, just some thoughts bouncing around in my head here. I'll let everybody else talk.
So, go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
I've been supportive of the tax. I think I had pushed it earlier when we pulled it off because it was going against the library tax. I know how I feel about it because I believe it's absolutely like Mr. Was it O'Leary or Larry? O'Leary. Like he said, a tax is nimble, meaning we can change the tax rate. Literally every month we can change the tax rate to move with the schisms. You've seen what development agreements do. It is cumbersome. They're very difficult to get before the board because what I've heard today is relief, right? Everyone's seeking relief because the price of cannabis has dropped. If we had a tax, no one would be overpaying, no one would be underpaying. They'd be paying exactly based on what they were supposed to, exactly what a development agreement was, in theory, was made for. So again, we were going forward with the tax. We pulled it because we thought it would affect the library tax, much of what the chairman was talking about, City of Modesto. I just looked back really quickly. There were 9 school bonds and/or taxes on the 18 ballot. Now there's consolidated elections, so really you can only put these on every 2 years. In 2020, there were 8. There's 6. There's going to be 6, it looks like, in this calendar year. So there's going to be fewer tax measures, I believe. Back when we had the library tax, when we pulled it off, Modesto went forward with their tax, their marijuana tax or cannabis tax, and they both passed with 82%. Actually, Modesto's cannabis tax beat the libraries by like 0.2%. And I was looking back, Riverbank had an election the same time as the school bond. It didn't have any effect. It didn't appear to have any effect. So I'm confident that there's a differentiation at first because I'm concerned about Modesto, but I'm concerned about the school bonds. And again, there's going to be 4 other ones. We keep talking about Modesto, but every election from here on out, because they're consolidated, there's going to be a bunch of tax and/or bond measures on the ballot. So we're never going to find a good time. That I'm sure of. But based on the fairness and the request for relief, I still don't see any other way around it. This is it. We can change the rates. I understand your concern about the 10%, but we are harmonizing with what Modesto has. That was the full intent. We essentially took the exact same thing because we have a square foot tax right now on grows, and now it's going to be the potential to have gross receipts because that's what Modesto has, and nothing more, nothing less. I'm one person, but we're not doing 10%. It's written in there. I would prefer it wasn't in there also that high, but again, it's harmonizing with Modesto, and I think that was, in the end, that's going to be a smart thing. The one thing that's different about this is that all of the people have to vote. The whole 550,000 people could receive, not 550,000, the registered voters could receive something because we commingle the money. So we have to make sure on a ballot statement, if we go forward with it, that we're very clear this is unincorporated area only. So again, I'm supportive because there is no perfect time. And if it's not this time, it's going to be another city, it's going to be another school bond. And so I'm going to support it. Again, I've heard you, and you've seen how difficult it is to try and get your development agreement before us, just generally. There's no 2-year rolling average in this. We change a tax monthly if necessary. We could change it twice a year. We could at least take it up July 1st and December 31st to try and move based on market conditions. The board, as it's configured now, I am positive, does not want to put the cannabis businesses out of business. That's not our intent. And HDL is our tax advisor. It's not some out-of-state, or they handle cannabis up and down the state. Danya and I, Damien and Tara, have been working on the CSAC, the California State Association of Counties, Cannabis Working Group, and they're pushing the tax for an enforcement mechanism. That was just brought up at our last meeting. We've got Mendocino Supervisor, Humboldt, Santa Barbara, Santa Cruz, I'm trying to think the regular members, Riverside, myself, and we're talking about all these issues because I hear the same thing I heard from you, I hear from pretty much everyone. Black markets harming everyone, but bottom line is the price of cannabis is going down quickly and we can't react quick enough. So for those reasons, I'm going to be supportive today. The oddity of the 4/5 vote is going to make it difficult to get this through, but the timing won't be any better 2 years from now. So we have to determine whether we're going to stick with development agreements, I think, or whether we're going to go forward with the tax this year.
Okay, thanks, Vito.
Go ahead.
Manny?
All right. So I appreciate the time and the conversation, much needed conversation. I know the industry's been talking to all of us, whether it's with staff or individually, and just came out and even more apparent that there's a need for consistency and uniformity. Where that number is, I think that what delaying this for 2 years allows is really seeing where that number is 8%, and I know Supervisor Keyes mentioned that there's nimbleness around it, but why not go and address the situation with the number that everybody in the industry feels comfortable with, staff feels comfortable with, at a time when everybody's feeling tax or just overall the inflation concerns and things as such. I think that it would be beneficial to wait for 2 years on this tax. And then speaking to the sentiments that Supervisor Withrow shared, there is going to be tax fatigue on this ballot. As a representative that represents mostly Modesto, although I'm not a big proponent of taxes, I know the need is there. When you're not able to provide essential services, then there's a concern there. And for me, that's something that's of utmost importance on this ballot. I can't foretell the future, don't know how many ballot measures we'll be on in 2 years, don't know what types. I do know what's in front of us in the next 90 to 120 days. So for that reason, I'm not going to be supportive of this tax measure, and that is no disrespect or to the work that staff has done to create this uniformity. I think it's just an opportunity to give us more time to have conversation with the stakeholders that have spoken loudly today and in the months previous. So for that reason, I will not be supporting this ballot measure.
Okay, thanks, Manny. Buck?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff, thank you for all the work that you've done putting all this together and the briefings that you've handed out. Two things. I know a lot's been said both ways here today. I think I'm going to be supporting this. I think, one, it levels the playing field for our business partners. And number two, there is no problem, and there shouldn't be any problem, giving the information to the people and letting them decide. I think that that gives us clear direction and way the people want to go. So I have no problem voting for putting this on the ballot.
Okay, thanks, Buck. Okay, Chance.
Yeah, to echo the comments of my colleague, I have no problem allowing the general public to decide in an election and let democracy hold out. With that being said, I think our role currently today is what we could do is provide some sort of relief that's been echoed from public comment today. And that's why I would like to make a motion to enact a lower interim fee rate for the period from now and through the election in order to provide relief for those businesses. We do need to get to a point in society where we're not discriminating against legal businesses. You know, these folks aren't our enemy. It's the black market, that is. And that's something that we are all in making efforts in order to stomp out with our sheriff and the sheriff's department. And also, I would like us to explore higher fees or fines for those who are operating illegally. If that is a possibility, maybe that's something that could be brought back on the 26th as well.
Okay, thanks, Chance. Tom, you want to just address Chance's?
Yeah, the proposed motion to change the interim fees that we charge, that can only be done by bringing the development agreements forward. What's on the agenda currently is a recommendation to put the, or to hear the first reading of an ordinance. Yeah.
And Mr. Bowes, that I completely understand that, and that is a conversation I would like to have, is bringing those development agreements forward so that we can make adjustments currently for the interim period from now and through the election.
Got it. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Chance. Okay. Any other further comments or questions? This is a fun one. All right, let's go ahead and do I guess we'll look for a motion, first of all.
Motion to approve all the staff recommendations.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and let's do a roll call vote.
And did my motion die, Mr. Chair? Or we'll do that separately?
I'm sorry.
All you got to do is tell them.
Yeah,
Common
with
consent,
regard
right?
to the...
To bring them forward.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So we'll bring that back, Chance.
Okay,
Is that okay?
thank you. Yes, that's perfect,
Okay,
thank you.
perfect.
District 1, Buck Condit.
Aye.
District 2, Vito Chiesa.
Aye.
District 4, Manny Graywell.
No.
District 5, Chance Condit.
Aye.
And District 3, Chairman Withrow.
No. So it looks like the motion carries 3-2.
Yes.
Okay. We don't get those very often, guys, but good conversations. Thank you. Okay. All right, very good. Let's move on to item, where are we at here at this point? Our item 7.3, acceptance of...
Mr. Chairman, can we have a break?
Well, I think we got this last one. Do you guys, what do you guys think? You want to just get this?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Roll Tide.
Let's keep going. All right, we're going to keep going. Sorry, we're going to keep going, Miguel. Okay. All right, we'll move on to item 7.3, acceptance of report and consideration for endorsement of the 2021 Stanislaus Regional Homeless Strategic Plan. Christina, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
So, good afternoon, Chairman Withrow.
Good afternoon.
Members of the board, CEO Hayes, and Mr. Bowes. I'm Christine Huber. I am the director of the Community Service Agency, and I'm here today with Brad Hahn, the chairperson of the Stanislaus Homeless Alliance. In December 2020, my colleagues at the CSA first shared with you that the Stanislaus Community System of Care and the Stanislaus Homeless Alliance had partnered to complete an update to the county's homeless strategic plan. This 5-year plan was finalized and approved by both of those committees in the fall of 2021. Out of that plan, one of the tenets was the creation of the Homeless Strategic Plan Executive Committee, which was created to include 3 members of the Community System of Care and 3 members of the Stanislaus Homeless Alliance, and then other parties such as CSA, who coordinates and facilitates with the meeting. This ultimate goal of this group is to move forward the work of the plan that you have. Brad Hahn was appointed by this work group to address each of the elected governing boards at the county and then in the 9 cities to seek endorsement of this plan. Only by working together across the county and cities, including the nonprofits, the service providers, the advocates, and people with lived experience, can we have a shared understanding of the causes, gaps, and barriers as we make progress in reaching the goals. And so I'd now like to turn it over to Brad Hahn.
Thanks, Christine. Mr. Hahn, how are you?
Mr. Chairman, I thought all the people that were here were to listen to this.
They are.
But they all left.
You know, and since we run it so long, I can only give you about 60 seconds. Is that okay?
Okay. Well, you know, to give a little background, this is kind of one of the beginnings of focus on prevention, where you think of homelessness as not a preventive activity. Because it was such a need in our community, Focus on Prevention kind of took that on. And I'm also the chairman of Focus on Prevention, but this became, you know, kind of like one of my passions to help the homeless. And so what this is really a culmination of that, and it's really exciting to hear the report from Probation and Sheriff's Department, because that's what we were all about in the beginning, is getting people together to solve these issues together and see some results. So that's really exciting. So we began, just to give you a little bit of background maybe for those that are listening, the system of care, community system of care, is a legal entity required by HUD to administer the funds that come through HUD. And with COVID happening, a lot of more funds related to COVID came through those systems of care. So that was a lot of the larger numbers that we've seen over the last few years have come through that. That is the legal entity, but to your Chief Executive Officer's credit, Jody saw that in order to really make these things us to make a dent on the homeless, he felt like, I'm speaking for you, and it's
okay.
kind of fun.
I'll correct anything, don't worry.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll correct me. Can you please turn this microphone? But his brainchild was, okay, the people that make policy and the people that we can hold accountable are the electeds. And so therefore, we needed to get the electeds from the community in the same room, and also the person that's the alternate is the city manager. So city manager from Ken Irwin from Patterson is in the meetings all the time, because they're the ones that can build and create the environment in their communities to do housing and things like that, and shelter and all of those things. It all has to go through the electeds and the boards that are there. So when we started this this whole strategic plan process, we insisted that the outcomes be related to each of the communities. And this packet that we're going to go through is the one that we presented to Oakdale, so that you could see that it's specifically to Oakdale's needs. What you'll find if you look through the report, the 119 pages that I'm sure you've all read, you'll see that there's a common thread through this, and in what the communities really think that what causes homelessness and some of the ways to deal with that. So the next slide, what we did in this whole process is, this is a little bit of the nuts and bolts, the consultant did an environmental scan. What that means is everything that's out there related to homelessness, they developed that. Community feedback, we had 1,021 responses from the community, which the consultant said was a very high percentage. We met with all the cities, all the MACs, all of the legal entities in the community. talking about and asking questions about homelessness to develop this database. We had 4 community focus groups, and then we had a lot of different interviews with different organizations that either serve the homeless or are concerned about them. So the next slide is just a little bit of an idea of where we are. And I just digress a little bit about the point-in-time count. Every time it's talked about, I raise my hand and said it's not real data because it's informational data that you receive. And for instance, this year's point-in-time count, Waterford had 0 homeless people because all the homeless folks were at some event. And so that while it's not scientific data, it's anecdotal data in the sense that we have a lot of homeless folks, and we have the sheltered numbers and unsheltered numbers are probably pretty realistic. I think the numbers of people who are experiencing homelessness, that 2,000 number is very low, and because you have people that are couch surfing and people that are on the streets and aren't accessed during that point-in-time count. That point-in-time count is a requirement of HUD, and we do it the way that we do it because that's the way it has to be done. So the next slide, this may be a more realistic number, 5,052. That's the amount of individuals that were asked for services regarding homelessness in 2020. And again, these are just numbers. As we develop the HMIS system, the Homeless Management Information System, we're going to start getting real data because this is data on what services have they had, what have they been incarcerated, have they had mental health issues, are they substance abuse, it'll have all of those data in there so that we can have a clear picture of things. And that's being done across the county, and a lot of the folks that aren't even required by HUD to do that, the nonprofits are doing that. So that's really a good thing. So what we came up with is 8 goals to address homelessness. And if you look inside the Homeless Action Plan, and I have a copy of this, it is the 15 pages of goal number 1, housing, and how are some ways other jurisdictions have dealt with it. How can we do it? And it's a lot of things that this is kind of like the Bible of our going through an implementation of this process. So you can see the goals: increase the availability of permanent housing, increase access to availability of mental health, substance abuse treatment. That one was in every community. That was one of the number one. Number 1 and number 2 were the ones that we kept hearing. And then 3 is achieve equity in governance and outreach. And what that really is saying, treat everybody the same. Be equal with folks, and that's what we are doing, and we continue to want to do that. Increase coordination of services and access to information. And what I just mentioned about the probation department, that's what this is coordinating together instead of one person doing this and one person doing that. And that's what the system was like when we first started this. There were silos all over the place. Nobody's talking to each other. They've got the same people on 2 different lists, for needs, and it was just amazing. But we're working on that. Increase pathways to essential community services. Increased participation of people with lived experience. I've never been homeless, but I'm involved in homelessness, so I got to really listen to those folks who have been homeless and what's going to be effective for them. And that's the major role of the CSOC, is to provide those kinds of informations. And their job, what they do is they prioritize the money that comes in based on the needs as seen by them. And then, like I said earlier, the Homeless Alliance's job is to try and help make those things come to pass through working with the different cities and jurisdictions. Strategically support homeless prevention and diversion and rapid resolution, and improve coordination of homeless programs, further public health safety. So what we're here today to talk about is this action plan and your acceptance and endorsement of that plan. So But we didn't wait for that. We have started this committee that Christine mentioned, working to identify and prioritize, and we have some first steps that we're doing. One of the number one is housing. We're working on housing, and we have, the sheriff was good enough to allow us to use an incident command system that you're all familiar with from COVID. But it's just a structure. It's not the sheriff's idea of homelessness. It's just the structure to do it. So we have implemented already a working group with all the city managers to talk about affordable housing, permanent supportive housing, and all of those that go with it. And it's going to be very different in Turlock than it is in Patterson and Modesto. So the goal is not to tell Patterson what to do. The goal is to sit with them and show them what can be done, and then take it from there and be able to help them be able to see those projects come through. So that is, it's already going. We have a meeting with all the police chiefs to talk about issues there that we're going to be able to start working together on. So I already mentioned this next slide. What goal number one is the biggest goal for housing, and then there's the substance abuse and mental health that are kind of like the next ones that we're going to be working on. The achieving equity and people with lived this experience, those are what we're looking at doing, is creating a group of people that just kind of watch the whole process and be sure that that's taken care of, and so that it would be embedded in all of the different goals and aspirations that we have. So the next page is the what happened with Oakdale, and first the customized plan to fit the needs of Oakdale, and these are the local nonprofits that are there. One of the things we're finding out with permanent supportive housing or any type of housing is you have to have the nonprofits there to provide the casework. And a lot of our nonprofits are already taxed. So one of the things that is going to come from this incident command system in our plan will be, how do we bolster the capacity of the nonprofits? Because that's going to be a choke point, because if you build something and don't have the casework that goes along with it, it's not going to work. Next step for Oakdale, to collaborate with local nonprofits, partner with the county and local nonprofits in order to establish supportive housing options. And there are some that are happening. Modesto's just got 2 projects from Home Key. One of them is the James Street property that's, I think it's 7 units, and we're in the process of working on 14 units for kids out of the foster care system. They're 1-bedroom and studio apartments on 9th Street. So we're starting to see this, and the money is coming down. That is a competitive countywide grant, or not countywide, statewide grant system, and we were able to win on 2 of them, and there'll be more of that coming in the future. So the recommendations are that you accept the report and consider endorsement of the Homeless Action Plan. And then we'll be coming back with, assuming that you do this, that we will be coming back with a lot of information and really the working out of the plan. Because for me, I'm a community member. I don't, this is not my job. I do this because I want to. And I didn't want to just do another plan that sits on the shelf, which we all have been involved in those, and we've all done those. So what this is we're working very hard, and I'm giving myself 2 years to get to the point where we've built this system from homelessness to market rate housing. And there's the market rate and above is being worked on with a whole other initiative, but we've got to get this system built up so that we can help people be able to not be homeless and have a place to go and have a support system. So with that, any questions?
Very good, thanks. I think Jody wants to say something, Brad. Hold on one second.
Is this part of my 15 minutes or your 15 minutes?
Fortunately for me, I don't go on a timer, so that's nice. But Brad, I do want to add just a couple of comments, because there are a lot of folks that have been working on this, And my first comments are really just a thank you to just the multitudes of individuals who have worked to bring this plan before you today. And they have come from throughout the community in different stakeholder forums and just everywhere. It's a very lengthy plan. I understand that and recognize that. It'd be lovely to have a short 5-pager or something. This is a very complicated topic, and we wanted to make sure that it incorporated a lot of ideas and thoughts from all of the stakeholders that were involved in this process. So a thank you there. A special thank you for our Community Services Agency team and Christine Huber and her entire team. Many of them have stepped in that were not even part of this plan in the last 4 or 5 months and have really helped bring it together and try to support the process the best they can. So I want to thank that. And I want to thank Brad. I want to thank Brad for, these things, they require leadership. They require individuals who are willing to spend the amount of time it takes to go out and have the community discussions and so forth. So Brad, I want to thank you for your leadership in bringing this forward. You were, I think, elected to go to all the city councils. So that's 9 city council meetings and the Board of Supervisors to discuss this and to keep the dialogue going. So these things don't happen without leadership, and it's always been our intent to make sure that leadership is not just coming from government agencies, but also from the community as well. And Brad certainly embodies that for us. I do want to recognize just a couple of thoughts on the Stanislaus Homeless Alliance, or what we refer to as the SHAW, and Brad also mentioned that. Our intent there was to try to bring the community together with one vision, strategy, and report card for addressing the issue of homelessness in our community. And, we're still in an infancy stage, I would think, in our development. However, this plan brings us one step really forward. This gives us an umbrella that we will all be working under. And hopefully all cities endorse this umbrella. If not, they can add to it and say, here's what they want to make a priority in their particular city as well. So I absolutely love the fact that we've gotten to the point where we have a single document that we can all work under the umbrella of. And I also want to recognize that we will all have different priorities within that document. There are lots of areas to work on here. Brad mentioned a few different priority areas there in the report. I would like to call your attention to priority area number 8 as an area that the county staff and leadership and our departments will probably be focused on. It is more involved with the actual, what you're going to see on the street corners in our community, most likely, and we're focused on many of those aspects that are the homelessness issues that you see in the streets, in the communities each day, and there's already a ton of work going there, but I just wanted to highlight that that there are a lot of folks involved, and we all get to now pitch in and carry our weight with some of these priority areas. There is no one entity that is going to take on every single one of those goals and think that they can accomplish them. It will only be by many entities coming together and identifying what is their potential best contribution that we're going to make this kind of progress. So those were my comments. I just wanted to thank that entire team and highlight some of the areas we'll be working on.
Perfect. Thank you,
My last thank you is to this gentleman right here, Chairman Withrow, sits through with the Stanislaus Homeless Alliance with us and has gone to just about every single one of these meetings I've mentioned and has been a great partner, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I have to comment. I say it every time I see Brad. I saw him present in Houston and Waterford, and I always like to make fun of us when we go to meetings. We're being paid to be there, right? I mean, if you look at it that way, we're supposed to be there. And you were an elected official at one time, and I swear to everyone that you're so much more effective even today on issues like this, the really difficult issues where it's harder to have a community conversation. You probably couldn't do as well if you were an elected official, and taking time away from your business, you've made it a passion, and you embody the spirit of why I love Stanislaus County.
Yeah.
So appreciate you.
This document also is living and breathing, so it's going to morph and change as time goes on, as we learn stuff and figure out which way to go. So.
Okay, Buck, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brad, thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for the conversation we had earlier. It really cleared up a lot of stuff for me. And if we want to get technical, it sounds like we're operating in a unified command of the ICS system, because there's so many different agencies, partnerships that are taken part in this. So I'd just like to thank all of them, too.
Sounds like a
And we-
fireman's aspect of things.
But we're in a great spot to do that. Jody mentioned the staff and the staff changes that have happened just recently. Poor Christine's got this dumped in her lap, and Latasha, but it's the right group to make these changes, to really make the system work.
Very good. And I just want to kind of reiterate what everybody said. At first, thank staff, everybody's been involved in this county that's helped make this happen. I appreciate it. Everybody at the Shaw that participates in that. For a period of time there, we had plenty of our virtual meetings, but it's good to have everybody back in rooms now and sitting and staring at each other. That's great. And then just back to you, Brad, what you've done and what you've accomplished here and continue to accomplish. Most of this stuff just wouldn't be happening without your involvement. So I just so much appreciate you. Everybody here does your hard work and what you're doing to make these things happen. And again, it probably wouldn't happen without your involvement. And I know you've got a heart for this, and we very much appreciate your leadership through all of this. So
I appreciate that, but you need to talk to my wife. I'm really not as good as she
Okay.
is. But really, I have a passion for this because my wife and I bought a house right next to Grace Ada Park. We're remodeling it, and I began to see the homeless activity, and it really started bothering me. I started getting mad. I started getting angry, and I thought, this is not the way you're supposed to be. So I decided to just take the energy I was putting into that and put it over here. Because they're our neighbors, they're people. Terry met a guy a couple days ago that's went to college, the same place his daughter went to college. So they're people, and for us to just overlook them and not try and help them, I think that's what this is about, is trying to help people.
you're doing the Lord's work, that's for sure. So thank you for all you're doing. Okay, we will open it up for some public comment here now. And I do have one speaker card. Mikael, thank you for hanging out with us all day today.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. But it's hard to believe the member of CHA speaking for us. And I not agree with that, Mr. Chairman. Let me pass to you this. You need to read the, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kande, congratulations on your family, Mr. Kande.
Thank you, Miguel.
And I hope the next meeting for the $50 million, I'm asking Mr. Chairman that we have the meeting 6 o'clock p.m. in regard to the infrastructure. Mr. Chairman, I believe very strongly that you need to read the two reports. One report is the vision, Valley Vision, and this one, the other one, that you briefly can understand because it's over a lot of pages, over 50-something, 150-something pages. Mr. Chairman, I believe very strongly the representation of the chairman of the CHA is not supposed to be him. It's supposed to be one member of the board of directors of continuum of care, not him. And I say that because CHA is not a legal entity. CHA no have no responsibility legally. CHA can talk every year and nothing happens. It's supposed to, under your direction, a member, you Mr. Withrow, supposed to be a report every year. Never happened that. Up to date, never happened that. Why? I don't know. But this child was born because of Mr. Hayes, of the vision that he had. The Sunday child is going to take over the continuum of care board. That's the intent all along, and he's still doing it. Because in this report that he approved, and you guys approved, he said the CHA is the only new agency with the leadership and not to be the leading agency or board. That board is only advisory board, and you're part of the advisory board, Mr. Chairman. So you have some kind of conflict of interest in there, because you don't know for who to vote. Mr. Chairman, we have problem in regard to the housing issue, number one. We don't have no land. The only land that we have is agricultural land. That's there to be destroyed because we need more houses. How are we going to have more houses when the rent to pay 50% of the average worker to pay the rent is 50% every paycheck to pay for the rent. We have families sleeping in a garage, working families. And that issue of we're going to resolve the problem of housing is not true. It's not true. It's going to take 15 to 20 years. The housing element of Stanislaus County and the cities are behind 3 to 4 years in regard to the housing allocation regional. Very bad. Mr. Chairman, I believe very strongly the issue of the problem that we face in this county under the civil grand jury report. I don't know how many of you guys read that. It mentioned that we don't have accountability. We have two boards, CHA board and CFC board. The only one that have the accountability is the CFC board, not CHA. CHA is non-legal entity and don't have no accountability. But if something happened in the report of the grand jury recommended to have more accountability, CHA don't have no accountability. So I don't know why it was elected to speak this morning. Because he only can recommend. He go to different cities around the county, in 3 main cities, if we don't want to talk to him. Only because he only can advise. When the guys asking for money, well, I don't have the money, somebody else has the money. Mr. Chairman, you want to stop because I'm speaking, or?
No, keep going, Miguel.
Yes, sir, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I believe very strongly the accountability they need to have, the only one is the Board of Continuum Care. So if you have some kind of concern, what good job is doing CHA? No. The president of CHA is a good speaker and have a lot of patience, a lot of desire to do something. But he cannot do nothing, only is speaking, like I'm doing right now, but not have the accountability. So for him to come and replace the CSA director and have the floor to him to say whatever he wants, I think was wrong. The person is supposed to be here is the chairman of the continuum care, Mr. Conway, not him. So something is wrong in this presentation. We have problems before. We have the resign from CSA director resigned 3 or 4 months ago. Mrs. Bailey resigned, and we don't have, before we have 8 members. Now we have only 3 members working in the staff. So for Mr. Hayes to say we're doing excellent job, I don't think so. From 8 to 3, no way you can do it. Even Superman cannot do that 3 times a way. So Mr. Chairman, I think have to be consciously and to be honest, if you read the 2 reports, you're going to come out that 2 times in that report saying that CHA is the only new leadership agency that can go resolve the problem of the homeless in this county. And that's not true, Mr. Chairman. The only one is the continuum care under the CSA because receives state and federal money. The CHA have no responsibility. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Miguel, thank you very much, and thank you for staying around here so long today.
Well, yeah, it's my lunch time, but thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else from the public? Stephen, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first, I didn't say this the last 2 times to our Vice Chairman. Congratulations.
Thanks, Steve.
To the addition to your family.
Thank you.
In looking at the plan, and I have to admit I only glazed over the 119 pages of it, in order to solve our homeless problem, getting people cured of mental illness and drug abuse and all of those things, those are all very, very, very important. But without a supply of new housing, we're not really going to solve our homeless problem. Now, unfortunately, we have a choice because we've got land out there, but a lot of it is good agricultural land, and for those of us that like to eat, that's a problem. We can't plow it all under, but I also understand we have to build some housing. So it's probably going to require some type of a high-density plan to get that under control. So I'm wondering, would it be possible to start working on a partnership, because it's clear we're going to need architects, we're going to need contractors to get on board to build this. Now, to expect companies like that to do that pro bono is unrealistic. But is there some way that we can get some partnership going that gets some people to contribute at maybe a little bit less than their regular fee to design high-density housing, to get the high-density housing built, and so we can get these people off the street and into something a little bit more stable? I know ideally we'd want to take people from homelessness to owning a property, but taking that in one step is also unrealistic. So, but we got to start someplace. But I think we're going to need to get some of the housing contractors and those folks in on this thing too, because we're going to need more housing to solve our problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Stephen, thank you very much, and thank you for staying here for the entire meeting. Appreciate it very much. Okay, anybody else? Seeing none, bring it back to the board, and we'll look for any further comments or motion.
Motion to accept the...
We have a motion to accept the report. Do we have
Second,
we have a
to
second?
accept the report.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Good job, Brad. Christine, thank you very much for all your work, and everybody, thank you for all your efforts. Great work. Okay, we'll move on to our correspondence.
This board has received the correspondence and claims as noted on the agenda.
Acknowledge receipt of correspondence and refer as recommended on the agenda. Any Board of Supervisor reports?
I guess two things really quickly. I'll be out of town Sunday through Wednesday, going to D.C. with the Air Board. And then yesterday I went to the fair, something I thought was pretty amazing, and I texted Jeff this morning, the sheriff. But I saw Homeland Security had a team there with state parole, as well as our Sheriff's Department and probation, walking the fair. And so it was great to see a good security presence. There wasn't any problems, but I said, how did they get down here? And he asked them to come down and do some operations. So that's always a great thing.
That's great. All right, very good. Have safe travels, D.C. Get back safe. Appreciate all you're doing. Anybody else? Manny?
Yeah, this year not got to only attend one 4th of July parade, but got to do two. Got to join my colleagues, Supervisor Chiesa and Supervisor Buck Condit, in Turlock, which was very nice of them to not have it the same day that Modesto has it, because the three of us then came to Modesto's parade on Monday. And now looking forward to having an event in Oakdale so Supervisor Buck Condit can buy us lunch.
Very good. Thank you guys for doing that. Okay, any other things? Okay, we'll move on to our legislative, fiscal, and management report. Chief Executive Officer Jody Hayes.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of updates since our last meeting. I wanted to recognize that we have sent opposition bills to a couple of items. I'll mention AB 1608, which revokes authority for the Board of Supervisors to combine the local sheriff and coroner functions. This is a hot topic in Sacramento, and we've sent a letter up on that matter, as well as AB 205 or SB 122, which refers to our local authority for citing solar projects as well as wind projects, and a lot of issues with that related to what the impacts might be in local communities throughout the state. So we've sent a letter to Sacramento on those two matters. Also wanted to acknowledge, and it's been widely reported, that state budget includes quite a bit of funding for additional commuter rail, specifically the H train, and a local contribution of $57 million that we expect will support that project. It's been pretty widely reported, so just wanted to recognize that. And also, after our last discussion, I just wanted to confirm that we have confirmed that the state budget does include $3 million for our parks system, which includes funding for our Bonita Pool project. So we'll include that in the total project scope and financing and determine what we can do with that going forward. But that was certainly a welcome contribution and much needed. And that concludes my report.
Very good, thank you, and I appreciate all the efforts from Supervisor Chiesa on all his ACE train. It wouldn't be happening without his work on that, and appreciate Chance's work out there for Bonita Pool. Good stuff, okay. And then we're going to adjourn to closed session, but we're going to let Tom talk for a second here.
Yes, we have 2 items for closed session. The first is conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, subdivision D1. We have 1 case there. It's Taylor Webb et al. Versus County of Stanislaus et al. It's in the United States District Court, Eastern District of California, and the case number is 19 CV 01716. The second item is the board will be sitting as the in-home supportive services public authority, and the closed session there is a conference with the labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. The agency negotiators are as listed in the agenda, and with that, be appropriate for public comment.
Very good, thanks, Tom. Any public comment with regard to the closed session? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.